All right, so this is the Hopkinton Conservation Commission, Tuesday, June 28th, 2022, 7 p.m., Hopkinton Senior Center, 28 Mayhew Street. To start things off, we don't have any documents for review. So I guess we can jump right to the draft minutes. Does anybody have any comments or have enough time to review the April 12th minutes?
No comments.
No comments?
No comment.
Okay. With that, can I get a motion to approve the April 12th, 2022 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And first up on the agenda, we have SVT. They asked for Whitehall Woods exemption request for a trail, bridge, Eagle Scout project. You want to come on up?
So a presentation.
Sorry?
A presentation that
Oh, do you want to?
I emailed it to you.
Yeah, is that?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, if you want to stand in front of the board. Yeah.
And I have like a paper version of the presentation if anyone would rather look at that.
So I think the commission, I did print it out for them in their packets.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Excellent.
I'll go get it.
Yeah, if you want to go on the
thank
other
you.
side. Just let me know when to go forward.
Sure. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm presenting to you all the my Eagle Scout Service project, which is a boardwalk at Whitehall Woods, which is a group of trails in a big area that's run under the SVT. So basically, the project will consist of a boardwalk that's 40 feet long and 4 feet wide. It spans over this marshy wetland, which is on the Whitehall Woods Trail, as I mentioned. The trail is used by hikers, mountain bikers like Nimba. Mr. Forrestal here is a member of Nimba, and he's contributing his efforts to this project. Horseback riders like the Bay State Trail Riders have showed interest in this trail and the project, and lots of dog walkers and people in the area use this trail frequently. The area itself is around 32 to 36 feet, which is a rough and approximate measurement that we've taken. Changes depending on the seasons. More rainfall makes the space bigger, and less rainfall obviously shrinks the space. And the boardwalk would make the trail much more accessible for hikers, the bikers, the horseback riders, and anyone that's using the trail. Because right now people are going around the space, the marshy pit, to avoid it, and it's disrupting the ecosystem, the welfare of all the plants, the vegetation, and other animals and stuff that use the area. So that's the advantages to the project. Here's the location. As you can see, it's on the Fox Hollow Road. Here's the project site. It's about a quarter of a mile into the trail, and it's behind a few houses. We've already gotten approval from this neighbor here to let us use their land to bring in any materials we need to bring in. So here's a picture of the space itself. As you can see, super muddy. It's fairly large, so other hikers and people that are using the trail are going around this way or going up and over this boulder here. This is a visualization of what the bridge will look like towards the end of the project. Here are the schematics for it. Basically, the idea is that we take concrete parking curbs like one you would find in an industrial parking lot. We would lay them on the ground. We would flatten and level the ground. Then we would run concrete rebar about 2 feet into the ground, lay stringers on top, drill everything down with deck screws. We have the decking, we have curbing, and then we have a geotextile material with pea stone pebbles for the horses so that they don't slip. Here's a side view of what the project would look like. We're taking into account the variations in depth throughout the space. We're saying 35 feet, but again, this is an approximation. We haven't taken a measurement that could say for sure that all year it's going to be this big or all year it's going to be that big. It's constantly changing due to the size of rain and other things. Here's another more detailed side view. This kind of shows the way everything's going to be screwed down and attached. We're going to attach stringers using the flyby method with hurricane ties, and other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. And here's the top view. So we're saying 40 feet. That should cover the space with ample room on both sides. we're going to include a ramp on both ends so that the bikers can get up quite easily. And each segment is going to be about 8 feet, and there's 5 segments in total. That's how we get to that 40-foot number. Anyone have any questions about the project, about the site, about anything?
I have one question.
Sure.
So the Geotextile Foundation in the stone, where exactly is that going to go?
So once we lay the decking, we'll lay the geotech. It's basically like a roll of, it's thin, it's only 38 millimeters. You lay it on top of the decking, and it's just this like film that goes on top, and you nail it down with everything else.
And then stone on top. So you have the wood deck,
Right.
the fabric,
The mat.
stone on top.
Yeah,
And that's
pea
for
stone.
horses because they don't like walking on wood.
Yeah, horses, they get really uncomfortable when they can't feel where their feet are. So one thing is the curbing. On the other diagrams,
Yeah.
maybe the one after. Yeah, so right here you can see that we have 2 curbs. They're 2x4 pieces of wood. So when a horse goes over it, they're going to want to kick to the sides and make sure they can feel themselves as they cross it, because it's fairly long. And the geotextile material on top, especially the pea stone, the gravel, will help them like get a grip and make sure that they're grounded.
Cool.
Are you a horse rider?
I am not a horse rider.
But you looked into that? I would
Um,
never have thought about how horses cross a bridge.
Right. I mean, I think that one concern with the project for sure is that horses could slip or fall like over the side of it, and you know, if a horse is big enough and you don't have it down as strong enough, it could just flip the whole bridge over, which would be, you know, unfortunate, of course.
There's
So
a high heel slipping though.
initially it was supposed to only be for bikers, and then later we found out there was horses that use the trail quite frequently, so we
A lot
had
of
to
horses,
change a
huh?
lot of things. Right. Yeah.
I have a slightly more substantial question. You say that this area, well, not of yours, then my horse. Not of yours. I can't top you. You say that this area kind of grows and shrinks. How do you know that 40 feet is enough? How do you know it's not going to expand to 45?
So in the winter, when we measured it at its peak, we were measuring it throughout the year when we were speculating whether or not this would be a good site for the project. We measured it in the spring when obviously there's more rainfall and there's more water consolidation in this area. So at that, it was around 36 feet at its like highest. And then we would come back in a drier season, like around the summer, and we measured again, and like it obviously shrunk, and it was around 32. We never saw it get close to that 40. We only saw it get to 36. We're giving it 40 in total, so we have, you know, we know there'll be ample room and enough solid ground to build the foundation off of.
Okay.
And it's definitely just a wet, depressed area, not a stream or anything like that.
It's definitely not a stream,
Definitely
no.
not a stream.
What happens is that there's this uphill area over here, and when rain comes down, basically the water just ends up here. And because of, I don't know if you can see this, but there are these logs that hikers have put there, because like hikers go through the trail and they think like, oh, it'll be good to do this, but obviously it's not, because it's stopping the natural flow of the water that should be getting deposited down in the actual stream further down the trail.
Through the chair. I have been avoiding long hikes as of late, so I haven't personally been out there, but I have coordinated with SVT on it, and they have reassured me that it's not a jurisdictional.
Okay. And the pea stone that you're talking about, do you think that'll have to be like refreshed as like an ongoing maintenance thing, or is that like, is it something that's kind of loose on the surface, or is it secured down?
Ideally, once it's packed down onto the material itself, it should stay there for a while. Obviously, it's stone, so if it's kicked around and like people are running on it, like it's gonna move around. But I don't think it'll ever move to the point where like it'll be completely gone from the site. Unless someone is like trying their hardest to really relocate the material.
And you said the neighbor is letting you go through their driveway.
Yeah, we found one of the neighbors at a Little League game. We tracked him down and spoke to him, and they told us that they're willing to help, and they're really happy that if they walk their dog a lot on this trail, and that they're really happy that someone
To get the material from the driveway to the bridge site, are you just carrying? Are you driving trucks in? Or?
There's a small drop off behind their house, and from there it's only about like, I would say 100 yards to the.
So you're just carrying stuff?
Yeah, we would carry it. And for the bigger stuff, the SVT has talked about their ATV that's in their arsenal and their inventory. that we could use potentially, but ideally we could bring in all the materials we need.
Ash, when do you think you are going to build it?
We're hoping for August after other approvals that we need to get. We're hoping that within the next month or so we can get everything that we need to actually start working on the project.
How long do you think it'll take you?
Once we start the building, I'm going to give myself and like everyone else contributing probably like 4 to 5 days.
Anybody have any other questions? Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments, thoughts?
I could just comment that Ash is working with the Bay State Trail Riders for the horse aspect of this project. And it's their recommendation of the geotextile and the pea stone on top of it. And they have quite a bit of experience with this relatively new setup. They've done it for the last few years in different areas in Blackstone Valley. And they like the way it's working. And they generally are doing the upkeep of pea stone. I mean, I can't hold them to it or anything, but if it was all kicked off, I think they would be the ones to come in and refresh it if it needed to be.
Gotcha.
That was pea stone with bikes until it gets back down. Is it going to be hazardous?
No, I don't think it'll be hazardous at all. No.
All right. Can I usually vote on these?
Just do like a vote for an endorsement.
It's an exemption request, so.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the exemption request or issue an exemption request for this project?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Thank you. Good
Well
luck.
done, Ash.
Yeah, your presentation was awesome. Put this in my files. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, this, I was about to say, this is, I get worried. That's what we're doing.
What time do we usually move to a new?
We're right on the edge here. It's up to you if you want to take if you want to take Maury or if you want to.
Sure, we'll take the Haltier Front Street Green Farm.
I'm afraid I don't
Since
have,
we're on the topic of trails.
yes, I don't have a polished presentation like this.
You may retire here.
Okay, what this is about is I originally intended to submit an exemption request to build a bridge over a part of the stream there. But I was advised that because it's a river, it really needs an NOI. It's a river that's almost always dry. As you can see here from the picture, on the right side is where we plan to put the bridge. On the left side is a culvert where most of the water goes most of the time. So what goes on the right is only when there's an overflow, there's too much water. Well, it's not too much water to fit in the culvert, but it's the level of the culvert is not really below the level of that part of the stream. So it looks like it's going to require an NOI. What you see here is the bridge goes across what used to be a road. There was probably a ford across the stream many years ago, and it got washed out. They built a dam on the left to divert the water into the culvert, so we want to put a bridge there. The problem with this is that it's a 30-foot span, and we can't really carry 30-foot long pieces of whatever it takes to build a bridge. So it's going to be, we want to build it in 2 sections with a crib in the middle that is going to support 2 16-foot sections, basically. And so the crib that's in the middle will be a wooden structure filled with boulders that are right there in the stream bed. So given this NOI, it's kind of an onerous paperwork research thing, but also the fees are kind of onerous. And looking into this, I found out that if this is a town request, then there aren't any fees to the state. And we really wouldn't be able to afford this project with the cost of the bridge itself and all the fees. We wouldn't be able to afford this. So one thing we're asking at this point in time is, would the commission consider sponsoring this as a town project? This is a public trail, open to the public. It is on Halt land. And, you know, if we can do it that way, then Halt would go ahead and do all the other paperwork and submission for the NOI itself.
Okay. Kim, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you for the overview, Maury. You know, certainly the notice of intent is also up for discussion. This came to me, as Maury said, as an exemption request, but it kind of piqued my interest because of the status of the stream. It's a perennial stream. This structure would be in the floodway. And then, you know, Sue kind of went out last week and kind of confirmed that suspicion. So, you know, thinking that this may need more substantial permitting. If there's that pier in the floodway, it may also need 401 potentially.
I should
or-
mention that
or-
we found out the road itself, that the bridge is approximately at the level of, is not in the floodway.
Oh, that would be helpful. Yeah.
According to Chuck, our expert, he looked at the maps. So the road isn't, but obviously the bottom of the stream is.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit more complex of a situation for a crossing. Certainly, we have sponsored filings before, but I just want, you know, Halt to be aware of the level of permitting that may be required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our feeling on this is basically, because it's only the overflow situation, and you can see the water never gets more than 9 inches deep at that point, even at the worst flood situation. So it's not really a lot of water at that point, and we're only blocking 4 feet out of 16 or 20 feet of stream. So we don't, and also there is the dam immediately upstream of this actually is what blocks most of the water. So this is only the overflow. That's what's happening here.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm more concerned about the dam or the culvert failing, because it seems like this whole system is not working correctly hydraulically. But is there anything nearby that's threatened if this thing fails?
Actually, upstream of this, there's a spill. I don't know if there's a picture. There's a concrete spillway that's only 3 feet wide, where actually most of the water goes. And then there's another channel next to it that's like 7.5 feet wide. It looked like it was dug. I'm not sure what it. Yeah. So most of the river, most of the flood happens behind the dam that's just upstream of this. And if there is any flood caused by anything here, it would only be, it's only about 120 feet from this point to that spillway. And there's nothing up there. It's all riverbed, basically. And there's a huge wetland upstream of that, which is pretty deep. So it'd be nice if this was just an exemption request.
Why was this, is this the optimal spot? You know, I guess my question, and you know, without
Yeah.
having the advantage of having seen it in person, just kind of.
Well, no matter what we do, we're going to have to cross that,
Mhm.
that river. The only alternative is to build 3 separate smaller bridges that could completely, that stream breaks up into 3 parts and then comes together. And each of those 3 parts could be spanned by a single bridge, but one of them would be kind of close to a neighbor, and we don't want to upset the neighbor by moving the trail too close to them. Downstream, it's still pretty wide. It's the only way to get across. Like it says in here, there's a couple months of the year where you basically can't cross it unless you want to take your life into your own hands.
And the spillway is off property, is it? Right?
The spillway is exactly on the property line between us and the neighbor. So we can't build a bridge there because it'd be on somebody else's property. They did. They have a bridge across it. But that's a separate story.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, and downstream, it would be a pretty large bridge, quite a ways downstream. So it just so happens to be really wide at that point is our problem. So I would have to put the crib in the middle.
Through the chair?
Yes.
So for me, I'm not the commission, but it's something that I'm generally personally open to, the commission sponsoring such a project, but I do think we need to keep kind of working on it, working towards it, looking at the alternatives, figuring out exactly if we go this route, what other permits we might need, and just kind of moving forward with a plan.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Your thoughts, yeah. No, I think just based on what we've done in the past, I'd be open to, waiving filing fees in support of a town project. To answer that question, does anyone have any thoughts on that? The filing fees?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I agree with Kim, though. I feel like we need more alternatives.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I guess I would encourage you, like when you get a little more information and maybe work with the staff and don't hesitate to come back before you do a full permit application and, we can kind of talk about what the best scenario might be. Okay.
Question? So Halt owned, not town owned, Halt CR, right? Have you spoken to the TCMC as a sponsor? Or is that
Yes. I asked them if they would help pay for the materials for the bridge. And that, what I got from Peter Lagoya was that they need to ask the select board whether that's permitted. Seems like they're open to doing it, but
whether it's permitted?
well, they don't know whether it's within their ability to pay for a bridge. And they pay for lots of bridges that we build, but they're on town land.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it is. The trail development's one
Yeah,
of the
it's a trail and
charges,
it's a
so
public trail. So it makes sense.
How
to
about them
me.
sponsoring, regardless of
Sponsoring it?
As opposed to.
That's interesting. That's a
I
possibility.
mean, I don't know if it's better for us or for somebody else that does.
Have they done NOIs for some of their trails?
I don't know the answer to that question. Kim, do you know?
There's one for parking on Pond Street.
There was a couple of RDAs. That we were able to find.
But yeah, we did talk about it at our meeting
Hughes
last
probably
week,
did.
and the concern
Yeah.
was that it's not town property, so can we
Spend money
vote
on
to
it.
spend town money on land that's not town-owned land? So that was our sticking point, why Peter wanted to talk to somebody. It's a select board.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Thank you for coming in. This was helpful. All right. So I think we'll move on to our new hearings for tonight. So first we have an RDA from the town of Pocklington, 0 Hayden Row Street, and 14 Hazel Street, EMC Park. So I believe we need to read this public hearing notice.
Yep.
The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 28th at 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Hopkinton Senior Center, 28 Mayhew Street, to hear all persons interested in a request for determination of applicability filed by the Town of Hopkinton Engineering Facilities Department for stormwater management improvements and associated site work. Location 0 Hayden Row, Assessor's Map 2, Block 0, and Lot 0, and 14 Hazel Road, Assessor's Map U22, Block 46, Lot 0.
Whatever you prefer.
Yeah, let's go to sheet
Hold it up if you want while you're talking.
Or, yeah, I think that should be fine.
4.01?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my name's Rachel Luna. I work with VHB as a water resource engineer. I'm here with my colleague Eric Olson, an environmental scientist with VHB. So I'll give you a rundown of the project, and then Eric will take it to talk about the resource areas. So we were contracted by the town to do some retrofits at the EMC park to the existing stormwater basins. They started to become overfilled with vegetation and trees, and they weren't functioning as intended. And because of that, water started overflowing and channelizing through the property and towards 14 Hazel Road, which will be on the next sheet. So our improvements are to regrade these basins and have them function as detention basins with outlet control structures to control the flow. And then we're going to propose a pipe through the property. And then if we go down to the next sheet, through the back of the property. And then we're getting an easement through 14 Hazel Road to come through their property and tie into the drainage within Hazel Road. So as you can see, down there is where the wetland area is, and there is some work within the 100 foot buffer zone.
You have a little bit of wiggle room
That's
with
okay.
this board. It's a short board, I'm sorry.
So as you can see, this is the 100-foot buffer zone line here. The work's coming down. This is the proposed pipe. There's a stone wall here, and there's the property boundary, and the work is within, through an easement through this person's property right here. And the wetland that I delineated is out here. It's kind of off this property and into the woods off of Hazel Road. And so if you scroll up to the previous slide. Yeah, so what's happening here is these are overflowing. If you want to go down a little bit, just so you can see down here. These are overflowing and basically inundating the area downstream. This is all upland as far as I can tell, and water is coming out of these and kind of inundating these areas. And so if you scroll back down to the next slide. So there is some channelization along this area coming. So even though the other one was going down, it's coming from this direction right here. The basins are down here going this direction. And there's some channelization from the basins through the uplands and right to this person's property boundary. And then right along the property boundary, the water, when it comes down after a storm, will kind of hit a wall, take a right, follow the person's wall right down to the other side, other corner of the property, like right here. So the water's coming like right here. And right here, there was a very wet spot here that I looked at, and I took a wetland plot there. And it turns out that it is not a wetland based on the veg mostly and the soils as well. So I determined this wasn't a wetland area here. And as Lucas Environmental mentioned in their write-up or their comments, there is the channelization is coming all the way down here, and then it kind of picks back up over here, and there's over here, and there's a channel that does connect right here to the wetland. But in my determination, I didn't see any wetland on this side of there, so this wouldn't be a jurisdictional channel because it is just stormwater. And then the intermittent stream would technically start right here and go through the wetland. So I'm interested in Lucas Environmental's comments just on what they saw up here. They mentioned that they saw what they determined to be a wetland in the southeast portion of the property, and I'm wondering if that is over in this portion here, or if they were looking at what I was looking at here on the property boundary, because where I saw that it was very wet and very borderline. It was very borderline. It was almost a wetland, but not quite. Let's see if I can look at the edge here. About the data sheet with me. So if you guys want to look at this, you can. So basically what it looks like to me is, as far as I can tell, this water here is all stormwater fed. I don't see any groundwater here happening. And that kind of bears out when you look at the plants where you have a lot of wetland herb stratum, but when it comes to the shrubs and the trees that would be there for longer, they really come out on the FAC upside or the upland side, and that's really what tipped it for this wet area not being wetland. So, and if you have any, based on this being the wetland out there, the work is all within the 100-foot buffer zone on this side of the wall, All this is grass area with a little bit of pavement from the person's driveway. So there'll be no tree cutting or anything like that. It'll just be work on someone's lawn and will be returned, to the way it was, after the pipe is installed.
Joe, do you want to provide or go through your comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just go through my comments and I can
Sure.
point out some of the things on the plan. But I did go out and review the site. As far as the wetland flagging, I noticed there were two sets of wetland flags out there. One set, the labels had worn off, were gone. Another set was labeled differently than on the plan, so I assume that was done by someone else.
I found the same thing in this area. There was flagging there, and that's why.
Some additional flagging.
Yeah, when I went out there to do my delineation, I saw flagging with no labels out there as well, and that's why I was really looking closely at that area. But
Yeah.
On this area, did you see labels on these ones out here?
I saw a number of flags with no labels, and then several flags with labels, but it was labeled differently than what was shown on the plan. So I assume the flags with no labels were the ones that
Probably,
VHB
yeah,
had
because
put
it's
out.
been a little while since.
And I didn't have any issue with those flags.
Okay.
I did point out that the intermittent stream channel continues up gradient, which I will point out on there a little bit. And I think one last comment was that I thought some additional erosion control should be discussed coming down from the basins where they're clearing vegetation, just because it is a fairly good slope.
Yeah, that's
within
true.
the area of clearing.
Yeah, okay.
It is graded to a 3-to-1, but we can provide erosion control blankets or filter fabric in that location to stabilize.
So as was mentioned, the channel continues from this wetland up more or less along the property line, then curves and continues up here. I did look at this area also, and I agree, it was not wetland. When I first saw it, I said, oh, this looks like a wet pocket.
That's right.
Upland soils, I did not see any wetland vegetation along the channel going up the slope, and I think it is all overflow from the basin. Where I did see a small patch of DVW was right in this corner.
Okay.
And clear vegetation and hydric soil at that location.
Okay.
So I
And
think
what-
at least to that point, it would be jurisdictional under the Wetlands
So
Protection
that would
Act.
bring the channel all the way up to there.
Under the bylaw, the stream channels are protected up gradient even of any wetland.
Okay.
So it may be further up gradient protected under the bylaw.
Even stormwater.
Well, that'd be the
'Cause
commission
that-
to discuss.
Yeah, that's the rub, because in my opinion, the only reason that channel's there is because these stormwater basins are overflowing, and if they weren't failing, none of this would be there.
And that was why I kind of mentioned just looking for additional information on
Okay,
your view on that.
sure. But yeah, in my opinion, when I went out to delineate this and looking at it a couple of times, it seems to me that once this project is complete, all the hydrology that is causing the channelization and any, herbaceous, wet species will disappear. And all this will be underground and you won't even see any flow through here.
So, through the chair, are you actually rehabilitating the stormwater basin? It's not working properly, so you're just piping it all up together?
Yeah,
Like,
because the
the reason
reason.
this failed is because it hasn't been maintained, and you're not giving me an O&M plan.
Exactly, and it's become vegetated, so the first thing they're gonna do is cut the trees out of it to restore it, and then they're gonna,
Regrade, add outlet control structures to control the flow.
Did you provide analysis of, obviously it was designed to work correctly and it didn't, and now you're just piping it, so is there an engineering analysis?
We do have an analysis, yep. We have an HydroCAD model.
So is that in the packet?
We did not provide a stormwater memo because it's not, it's an RDA, not an MO.
Okay, so right now we're deciding whether or not this could be filed as an RDA or if the commission decides we need a notice of intent. For this question, I think we're looking at tonight. Okay.
But now,
Through the
any
chair.
stormwater feature that has been maintained and was installed prior to 1986 then becomes a resource area.
So we do have the original permitting for EMC Park where they built these stormwater basins. Let me see if I can pull it up, but I believe it was past that 1996 date. And it was permitted under the MA Stormwater Handbook. So I've been operating under the assumption and provision that these are not jurisdictional, that they are operational stormwater EMPs and infrastructure.
They've gone out there, they're not operational.
Oh,
Exactly, that's the reason they're proposing this.
Who's responsible for an O&M? Who were you hired by, DPW or?
Town engineer.
Town engineer?
It would be
Here.
DPW.
Yeah.
DPW.
Yeah.
The Parks probably maintains it, which is probably the reason why. The neighbor's complaining. That's all right, nobody maintains detention.
Did you have something to add, Phil?
Uh,
Or was that your point?
That was my point,
Okay.
yeah.
So are you going back to are you matching the original design, or are you expanding, or you said you're adding outlet control structures that weren't part of the original basin? Is that?
Correct. There were no outlet control structures. The town did modify with risers. And so now we're proposing to increase the size a little bit to withstand the 100-year storm and then mitigate the flow out through those outlet control structures.
And that's the 100 years. Those are design calculations per the current stormwater?
Yes, not the past ones, correct.
Okay.
They're current stormwater standards.
And the pipe, what's going on downstream? So you're connecting into an existing drainage pipe. Can you talk about what is downstream of that pipe?
Yeah, where's
And
the
what-
It's underground in Hazel Road, right?
Yes.
So it's an underground connection to a stormwater. And then I believe, did Luke say it discharges further down Hazel Road?
Yeah,
There's
it just contains Hazel Road.
Yeah, there's an outfall. If you follow this wetland down about like, I don't know, 300 feet maybe, at that end of it, there's a big outfall that comes out from under the road and attaches to that. So it ends up in the same wetland eventually. Yeah, it's probably, where are we? It's probably that easement. I see that little L shape. That's probably what it is. Like, I think it comes out of the head wall right there.
Is that right next to your house?
Yeah.
So through the chair, if you return the stormwater basin to being functional, do you still need the pipe? Oh.
Yeah, because it was designed to overtop, and it would overflow, channelize, and get into that abutter's yard. So we're trying to eliminate that issue.
We're trying to fix this person's problem. They have a
Yeah.
pretty wet yard. I was out there when it was wet. And
Yeah.
he's got a problem for sure.
But if the detention basin was designed and engineered correctly, it wouldn't overflow like that. That's emergency overflow or regular overflow?
It was designed as an infiltration, and when we did test pits, it was not infiltrating.
And the soil still, did you look at green infrastructure? What alternatives did you look at? I mean, there's so much space out there that we own.
Well, I think like when it comes to this, it just makes more sense to just rehabilitate what you have there rather than cut down more trees, and it's all forested down there.
Yeah, we didn't
Why
want
cut down the whole forest when you can just fix this and put a pipe? I mean, it seems
Because you're just pushing
the
the problem
prudent way to go.
downstream, where this is where we actually have a lot of town land and we have a lot of complaints from other neighbors. Like,
Well,
that's the only place.
it's
that you
where
can
it's going
put-
anyway, but right now it's channelizing and taking sediment with it, so.
But if you redesign the infiltration basin so it actually infiltrated, it was maintained, then you would
This is-
avoid.
yeah.
It wouldn't infiltrate. The soils were not adequate for infiltration.
So it's more of a detention.
Yeah,
it's a
now
detention.
we're, yep.
That's not what you originally said.
What did I say?
You called it an infiltration basin.
I said it was designed to be an infiltration basin. But then as we went up there,
But it never functions.
right, so now we're proposing detention.
I think,
Let's still vote.
I think, all right, so as far as the question of whether or not, I personally don't have, or would encourage, I don't have a problem with them maintaining the existing basins under an RDA, but I don't know about the fact that it wasn't necessarily functioning and we're sending water, the drainage calcs, that whole piece of it. I think it might be prudent to look closer at those details. I don't know if anyone else on the commission had any thoughts.
I kind of agree. I mean, it does seem like it would qualify for an RDA, especially for the stormwater feature. It's now this additional height that becomes the real question.
And the actual work in the resource areas is just, again, within the 100-foot buffer zone and all on lawn and pavement that'll be put back the way it is with no tree clearing or anything like that. So it's pretty minimal as far as
But it's still in
that
the
work
buffer,
is. In the 100-foot buffer, yes.
which would typically require an NOI.
No, it wouldn't. I mean, that's exactly what an RDA is for. Is for work just in a buffer zone where it's minimal and, you know,
How deep is the pipe?
it's a good question.
About 6 feet.
It's a lot of excavation. I just don't like the design, but I think you can do it as art.
Did you, did you look at just creating a channel instead of putting it in a pipe, just channeling it towards, off of, away from that person's property toward the wetland?
Yes, we did, and that was vetoed by the engineer. The
I don't think the slope's really, there's really no good place to put it. That's
Yeah.
the problem, because it's all just kind of going down in every direction. So it's someone else's problem if you put it
Right.
somewhere else.
So the property on the right, where the wetland is that just, there's any house there, or is that just the wetland?
No, there's no house on that property, but there's only a short little jump through the woods. Right there, it's probably like 100 feet or something, and some houses right there. That's the undeveloped property.
Why would you not call it there?
Where, I'm sorry?
For the wetland?
I mean, I'm not the engineer, I didn't design it, so, I mean...
We weren't able to daylight it to that. We'd have to get into the wetland to be
Yeah,
able to daylight it.
right, that is part of it too. Now you're like impacting a wetland and creating a head wall or whatever, but it seemed to make sense to, since it's stormwater, to put it into the stormwater system.
And is so the pipe that it's connecting into, you said there's like just a handful of catch basins, and do you know the size and the outlet? Is that like a low point? Is there going to be any impacts as far as capacity goes?
We looked at capacity and did not, and it was fine. It's only receiving the drainage from part of Hazel Road. I don't have this side, or I can't. The side is on the plan. That's why I can't read it.
Sure.
Yes.
You had mentioned that the basin that was initially designed to infiltrate is no longer infiltrating. Now, is that because of fines? And is it possible that that be restored to be able to infiltrate again?
I am not entirely sure if they conducted the appropriate test pits when they originally designed the system. So it could be that the soils were never adequate enough. But as far as our test pits showed, it was not adequate. Yeah.
So even deeper layers below the...
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my only maybe final question might be to you, Joe. Would there be any concerns if that wetland is being fed by this basin, basically, and now we're diverting the flow to the other end of the wetland?
No, it's a very good
is it going
question.
to impact?
Yeah, as far as I could tell, inside the wetland, there was, it seemed to me to be groundwater fed further up in there.
Okay, it works now.
On this end, it's a little bit higher up, and when you get right over here,
Right,
it
I'll
kind
fix it,
of
thank
dips
you.
down in elevation and gets a lot more wet. But this still looked like it, was partially groundwater fed. That was my assumption, not assumption, but my opinion looking at it. Surely it will get a little drier on that top end with that water not coming in. But I don't think it would have a major impact on the wetland, because like I said, it is wet down, when you get a little bit further down into about 100 feet, maybe 150.
I think I would agree with that. I think it is primarily groundwater fed there. The upper edge may lose some due to less input from the stream channel.
Right. There was a spot where people were putting,
It's pretty well
dumping their leaves,
sized.
and once you got past that, it was very, very wet. See it all the time, I can't stand it.
It's
Okay.
multiple.
Is there any
Compost.
comments from anyone in the audience here on this? No.
Well, there's one recommendation here about having an engineering review. I mean, apparently the town engineer reviewed this. Implementing green infrastructure. Type it off, type it off.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the.
Is that really playing that? So what do we have to do?
So we need to decide whether we accept this as an
Conditions
RDA.
or- right.
Yeah, right, with any conditions they might want to, or typical conditions in the additional, or if we want to request that it be submitted as a notice of intent.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I would want to point out that.
So we need to decide.
The town has some blanket DPW permits for maintenance activities under RDAs. So just wondering if the actual maintenance activities in the basin could be covered under that. Like I don't know if you guys want to kind of separate these things out.
Right, so you mean just a typical O&M
It's typical,
manual to
you know,
go
basins.
along with the basin design?
Yeah, I mean, considering, climate change pressures and whatnot, I personally would be hesitant to discourage DPW from doing that maintenance. I would want it to be easy for them to be able to, in that aspect, if they're ready to do that maintenance in this infrastructure.
You're talking about the maintenance for this particular cleanout or ongoing O&M? Both.
Both, yeah. I mean, it's obviously not functioning as intended.
Right,
Yeah.
no, definitely, it
Yeah.
needs to be. And we don't have, we don't have anything in place. Or we do, DPW does.
We do.
We do, yeah.
Did you
So we
adjust
would
the
condition-
sound level? I mean,
I guess that's what, given that it would,
switch in here.
we condition that if we were, in either way. If it's an RDA, we could put that in.
Well, you're kind of saying
As a condition.
the RDA that they already have, they can do all the maintenance on the thing, and that whatever we do now would just be the additional gray infrastructure, the new outlet structure on the pipe.
If you, yeah, I would recommend clarifying that, yeah, if that's the way that you were going, yeah.
Which I think is a good idea. Using the existing RDA for the maintenance stuff, which is an expectation, and then processing this RDA just for the new gray infrastructure and the new disturbance.
Yeah, that's clearly not, maintenance, that's a new item.
Okay. You guys said there's a new outlet structure for the pond, for the detention basin?
Yes, two. One at the large one and one at the small one.
Theoretically, they have to go in and clear them out just to do that.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Anyone else?
Yeah, that's what I prefer. I was kind of thinking, in total, the project's a little bit big for an RDA, but it's sort of struggling with, but, we want the detention basin clean and maintained, so I like the idea of separating them. And just the maintenance is fine under an RDA.
Okay. All right, so given that, does anyone then make a motion?
I'll make them move. Meet the intent, I just don't like the design. For the record, I don't like the design.
I agree with Carrie. I think there's some good alternatives.
Carrie, do you think there's, do you have concern that it's not going to function any better, or than what's there now, or it's not going to function properly?
No, no, I think it will function just fine. And it goes the same drainage area. It's just this kind of idea that it's easier to maintain a pipe than it is a stormwater basin. It's not, it's just delaying a problem. I wish that we used more green infrastructure and we looked at climate resiliency and all this stuff, because 10 years from now, the pipe's gonna be too small and you're gonna run into the same issues. But if this is the DPW's preference and the town engineer's preference, this is what they're asking to be permitted, I think it meets the design standards.
Okay. Thank you.
So I made the motion to approve as RDA for the gray infrastructure portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So you're issuing a negative or a positive?
Oh, good gracious. Somebody was telling me that one. It's negative, right? Negative's
Negative.
the right thing?
Negative is no cavities, pass go.
Correct. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay,
That's
so,
what we're doing.
okay, so do you want to revise your motion? So you're issuing, your motion is to issue a negative for,
Yes, please. Revise the motion.
Revise my second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
so is the commission finding the RDA in the form of a positive for the pipe, which is not maintenance?
I believe that's.
Wait, does that mean they have to come back for an NOI?
That would mean that
Yes.
if they wanted to do it, they'd have to come back for an NOI.
Well, what do you think? Could it qualify for an RDA?
My
Negative
remaining
Department
question
does.
is the additional jurisdiction that Joe pointed out. Is it actually crossing a jurisdictional stream, this pipe? In which case it would kind of bump it out of RDA territory.
Yeah.
But it also, RDA could be within jurisdiction but have no impact, correct?
Right, exactly. So I think what would happen, so we can continue this, we can go investigate that and come back with more information and still continue on, whether it can be an RDA or not. My guess is if that pipe did go through a little portion of wetland, they'd probably just move the pipe in that location, right? Because I think they have that possibility. It's not set in that location. I think they were just trying to get it through that guy's easement and down to that corner of the property as, expeditiously as possible. So it has to be moved out to be at the same distance from the other piece of wetland. That can easily be done. So I'd say maybe continue this before you make a determination, and we can come back with more information.
I'll make that.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
So I think, the other takeaway to take back to DPW is that the commission is, in favor of the maintenance, and it can be covered under our existing permits.
Okay, great.
But we'll continue the conversation on the pipe.
Sounds
Cut
good.
down a tree, take out the sediment.
Can I ask a question on that? How are you going to get equipment to that basin? That's right up against the Little League field, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the pavement.
I'm asking as a
It's
Hopkinton Little
not
League
far
board
from the
member as
parking
well.
lot.
Are trucks going right across that field?
Yeah, where the skate park is and the pavement, like you can park right
So you're
next
going
to
to
it.
go around the skate park?
Yeah,
around the
right
outside?
into the woods from the pavement.
There's enough space
It's
there to
a,
get
it's a
in whatever
pretty
you
quick
need to
shot
get
from
in.
there. Yeah, you can see right there.
They're gonna cut down all the poison ivy.
What kind of equipment are you gonna need? Because I think that's probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm
6
thinking.
feet?
It's
It's
down
only
around
6
that
feet.
right field foul pole. It's
yeah, okay.
pretty snug.
Well, I mean, it looks like they could probably drive it, something between the
Slope too,
fields
right?
too.
It is sloped too.
Are you seeing the six? Oh, that's pretty steep.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Well, that's a good question. I'm sure the engineering department has an answer for that. We can ask them that. We can bring that back.
That's part of the reason why I haven't been maintained this whole time.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah, I
that's
mean, if you
exactly
need to add to the plan, that is probably, I don't think you have, we have jurisdiction up on that corner of the field by the
Right.
skate park.
I
So
would agree, yeah.
potentially that could be
That's
part
the
of,
buffers.
the operation of maintenance, having having a pathway to the basin that also stays maintained, you know, for annual maintenance and access.
Okay.
Because it's pretty skinny there. It's not, yeah.
Do you have any idea what you guys might put for conditions, if and when you do approve an RDA for this? So we can know what to expect, and maybe we can tailor our information towards that.
Erosion control, we're talking about.
Erosion control, drive.
O&M.
Yeah, O&M.
Oh, you want on that? Right. That's what I was thinking.
Restoring anything that.
Yeah, I would incorporate that pathway in the access
Yeah.
and maintaining that perpetuity.
Retrieving any baseballs, returning them
Yeah,
to
returning
Little League,
baseballs
maybe
that have
find
gone in them.
any skateboards.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay.
So will we be on your next agenda, and if so, when is that?
July 12th. July 12th.
Okay.
Yep.
Get out there as soon as possible.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We gotta keep it under for a little bit tonight. Said we gotta keep on with it
Right.
tonight.
We have a
Yeah.
lot of stuff going on. Okay. All right, next up we have Kelly, 9 Montana Road. And I need to read this one as well. Hopkins Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Hopkinton Senior Center, 28 Mayhew Street, to hear all persons interested in the notice of intent filed by Edward Kelly for the construction of a single-family house with associated appurtenances, location 9 Montana, Assessor's Map U19, Block 39, Lot A.
Evening. Joe Martin. I'm joined by Ed Kelly, the owner and applicant. He is also controlling interest of EKC management. Construction management. So what we are talking about is number 9 Montana Road. Ed owns number 7, or one of those entities, either Ed Kelly or EKC management owns number 7. His farm is down here at number 13, and until recently his main residence was here at former number 9, number 11. So Ed has a controlling interest in about it's on 8 odd acres down here at this location. What we're focusing in on is this area in the back of number 7, which has been classified as number 9 at the building department. There were included in the filing some photos which may do a better job of describing what we're dealing with. A few copies.
Sure, you have enough? You have enough?
I have some photos too.
So the first photo I have in that package is they're labeled at the bottom quickly 483, and that is looking west across the back of the property, heading down towards Ed's new home, the white building in the far ground. You see that the area is grassed with a few trees and is generally, I would consider gently sloping from east to west across the property. 484, the second one in your package, I think that gives you a real handle on what we're talking about. Right against the left margin in red is that pine tree here, right at the back of the home, the proposed home. So that area between there and the tree line is the grassed area. That is the rear yard of the proposed dwelling. And then we move to a better handle on the resource area identified by Goddard Consulting. We asked Scott and his group to take a look at that channel in the rear in anticipation of this filing. And there is a culvert under Maple Street Extension that is connected via this stone line riprap channel that is the subject of 480, 474, and 482. See that the channel, not having natural bottom, is riprap, and that is this location in here. I think 480, photo 480, we're looking at flag GC 42. So that is the edge of our resource area. What we are proposing is this single-family dwelling that I've highlighted here. What we've attempted to do is to place this 50-foot from the channel, which Scott feels is jurisdictional under the bylaw, in the fact that it connects a BBW here to something downstream to the west. So we have maintained 50-foot to that location with the rear of the home. We're going to make a connection to municipal sewer, the existing stub in Montana Road, but we will install a private well here at the front and take power into the home site. So there'll be a portion in the front of the home that is related to the installation of site utilities. The area is very flat, makes it easy to place this without an awful lot of grade change. There's not an awful lot of site work required. So it fits in well to this location and will flow as it continues to flow from here down towards Montana Road in the front yard of Ed's old home. We have proposed a line of erosion control barriers that I've highlighted in blue on the plan, and we're going to allowing an area over here for the stockpile of materials to the east of the proposed dwelling.
Okay.
There is a memo from Lucas that covers a few topics, and I did take a quick check before I came over, and we have not received a file number yet from DEP.
Okay. Joe, do you want to go through your comments?
Sure. The first comment on some of the wetland flags were missing, and a couple of them had apparently been moved to the other side of the channel. I don't know if it was done to facilitate mowing up to the edge of the channel, but if you look at picture 480, the flag that's in that picture, I believe, was flag 42. That is now hanging on this tree across the other side of the channel. And I think that's the case for at least one more flag and possibly another beyond that. So as far as that goes, although the delineation is pretty obvious as far as the edge of the channel being the edge of the bank there, I couldn't say for sure that the flags are accurate because some of the flags have been moved and some are missing. I had noted that it appeared that the applicant and property owner may have been the same person, may have been different, and just looking for clarification on that. Also was wondering on the buffer zone alteration numbers provided in the application had more BVW alteration than bank alteration, bank buffer zone alteration. More BVW buffer zone alteration than bank buffer zone alteration. I was just wondering if that is correct, given that the bank will be the closest resource area to the proposed work. Also noted that there were no PIB markers indicated on the site plan. And also that it appears that, obviously it's lawn right now up to the resource area. It appears that that's the intent is to maintain it as lawn. And I thought the commission may want to discuss whether that's appropriate for a new home construction.
Okay.
And I think that's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. I'd agree. Okay, I think maybe there weren't some discussion on that last comment in particular in regards to the lawn going right up to the buffer, and whether there's anything that I might like to see as a little mitigation for, you know, putting the impervious area of the driveway, rooftop, whatnot on the site, to kind of, you know, improve some of the flow towards the stream or the buffer area, or the wetland itself, the buffer area. Maybe one of my thoughts. Does anyone else have any? You know, we definitely can't close without a DEP number, and I think there's a couple cleanup items as noted in Joe's memo. But is there any feedback that the commission wants to give?
And looking at this, other than the driveway, it seems like the entire lot is in the 50 to 100 buffer zone with the lawn going right up to the wetland. I can't see how any project would fit on this lot.
Within the 100.
With the whole lot is within the 50 to 100. I don't know how you could put a project here.
No, I mean, I agree. It seems like it has to be in the 50 to 100. I don't think there's anything else feasible.
Right, as this...
It's a back lot. The lot is at L, so it just goes like this.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So right now, there's no portion of the building that's within the 50. There's a portion of the patio.
Right.
And that's, you know, the garage is out of the 50.
And what we saw was the resource is simply a connection, a conveyance, if you will. The riprap swale between the wooded swamp upstream and wherever the destination is downstream. So this is simply a stream channel to convey the water so that the flow stays the same in those jurisdictional resources. So this, in my mind, is not a pristine wetlands area. This is to provide, to maintain a situation that provides flow to the areas necessary upstream and downstream. So our 50-foot offset in this case is not an area that is, in my mind, strictly a valuable resource for plant and animal life. It's a way to ensure that the water continues to flow where it needs to flow. So a 50-foot, 100-foot offset differs. We show it here because it's jurisdictional under the bylaw, but does it have function for plant and animal life?
So it's a pipe on either end.
There's a pipe here and a pipe here, correct, and then a riprap channel to the bulk of that area through there. So we're conveying water to other areas that rely on it. There is DBW on that side, on the other side of the channel, on that butters property. But the bank is the riprap channel you see in the photos.
So, I mean, I don't know why it couldn't be moved. You set way back, all the property from Montana to the proposed garage is the same property, right? Why couldn't the structure be moved up into that area, the garage especially, and the house moved over? I mean, why does it have to be way back there, when you could do outside of the 100, just up at along Montana?
There's another house
setbacks
there.
or something.
There might be a setback issue.
Can you explain if there's setbacks or if you subdivide that, is it self-inflicted, or what are you working against here? Why can't the house be moved up?
It was the offset to this home, number 7, on the boundary line at number 7. So there is some flexibility with that offset. We were trying to maintain some kind of offset from that home, that property.
But what offset? Like
I mean, just
personal
a visual
preference or
offset.
like building code offset?
A visual
Zoning
offset, not a code.
Correct. Yeah, at some point, the code offset will come into play.
Where
We
is
would
that
have to then
coming from?
discuss that with the building department to see what the minimum would be in that location in the RA zone 40 to 10, 20. Would they consider that, you know, a front offset? We would have to seek an opinion from the building inspector as to what that minimum would be.
Correct me if I'm
Well,
wrong, so these buildings are exist and they're staying, this one's getting raised, and this is all new.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Through the
And
chair,
it's one residence, and it's
Yes.
becoming 3?
This is not.
which one's getting raised? We believe the offset
Here,
is
but it's
10,
not on the-
10
it's
feet
on
from the
this-
sides, according to the
this
building
side.
code. Not 100%, but that's what we
Yeah, it's
think.
kind of-
That's a front yard setback, isn't it, Joe?
It's
This
10
side, yeah.
10 feet for the side setback, but we don't know about the
Now, the question
rear or
would be
front,
is,
whatever you, yeah.
this
in this
40,
side in here.
Yeah.
would that also have to be 40? Would that now become a side?
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's-
And then
right.
that could potentially be 10,
So on 33 would be something
right?
less.
I think, you know, for this one, unless anyone has other thoughts, it would be worth just kind of looking, taking some of the feedback that we had, seeing if there's any flex or,
I think you need to look at that, moving it up. I think you need to look at it.
right, and then come back and
Yeah.
let us know if you can get some determinations on setbacks, if there's anything you can slide around a little bit. I mean, I would look for maybe some sort of a filter buffer along that stream just to protect what's running off the lawn as some mitigation for, you know, putting impervious area closer to it. Might make me feel a little better.
May I ask a question about the property? For whatever reason, I can't get any information from GIS on that lot. All the other lots light up. Why is it a vacant lot with a lawn? Was there a house there once?
So the original that property was part of what's number 7, so we took that piece.
You subdivided
We
that.
subdivided that lot.
You
And are you
subdivided
the
that
owner of
outside.
7?
Yes,
You're the owner of 7,
Yeah.
and you're looking, I see.
yeah,
But you subdivided 7
correct,
to create this lot.
yeah.
So it used to be Seven's backyard.
That's kind of one of those self-imposed things.
It sounds
I mean,
very
you
much.
subdivided the lot, and if you're only left with this to put a dwelling, then that's kind of an issue. If you hadn't, if you had subdivided it differently, let's, for example, you're raising this garage, you could have put the property, you could have subdivided it much closer. I know it probably stinks for whatever is at 7.
Or this one could have got moved up.
Yeah.
Because the square footage
Because that's the
come in
same
from
thing.
the minimum lot size.
So the neighbor we're looking to not bother.
I mean, you subdivided this, the entire lot is within 100 foot. Well, the entire proposed building is within the 100 foot.
Right,
So, I mean,
the area available to 7 is
but that would be different.
just above the minimum requirement. So it's not as if 7 could shrink to something
I
so
understand.
small that it made this available, the entire lot available up to us outside the buffer zone. We are also operating with the zoning offset and the size of the parcel at number 7.
So I think it might be helpful just to maybe put some of that in writing, you know, to document what you're
So
working
there's no
against,
minimum?
different alternatives, you know, what you might have looked at
So
to
they
come to
could
this
have
conclusion.
chopped it off here and added some there,
Well, I mean,
right?
it's whatever's,
And then you're still within the minimum.
but it's not going to, it's subdivided the way that it is now. That's not going to change. It's just that.
No, but it's.
The whole thing is,
A self-created hardship.
the whole thing is within 100.
Right.
Okay,
While we have
so,
discretion from 50 to 100,
yeah, I hear you. I think coming back, you know, with the DB file number, a couple revisions, and a little backup on how you came to where you got here, and if there's any flex, any modifications to make it a little more palatable to the commission, would be the goal.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
So, this section is piped, there's a head wall there,
Right,
and it's
there's a head wall
piped,
there,
and
right.
you own all this property.
Yes,
So, I mean, I feel like there's potential to provide mitigation amongst all the properties you own if there was design, you know? Like, you probably don't want to daylight any of that, but as opposed to having to give up lawn, you could provide mitigation over there.
Mitigation for buffer zone, disturbance to
Yeah,
riprap swale.
what was it, like one of the, well, it's a jurisdictional.
I hear you, but its function is taking away the water from one
I
jurisdiction
gotcha.
like another. Yeah, yeah.
Still
I hear you.
jurisdiction, you can say how little value it has, but,
But you're, on the flip side, you're attaching importance to the channel as something that needs to have consideration for mitigation.
what I'm saying is that the commission seems to say, you know, we want to see something, and that I'm giving you an option that doesn't just have to be on this lot, but there might be potential
No, I
to do
appreciate
something on that lot. I personally think that we've, you know, if it's lawn, we've allowed lawn, but some of this is self-imposed, so I agree, it's a swale and it's probably better maintained this way, but a swale is still under our jurisdiction and still of value, even if it's not, you know, all the happy plants and animals. Especially considering how much issues this neighborhood has been having with hydrology and runoff and all that stuff.
Yes, just for clarification, we've allowed existing lawn on existing lots, you know, older lots. This is a new application, so it would fall under all the new provisions.
Right, it's,
Yeah.
but this isn't new law, like this has been cleared out for a while, no?
Oh, yeah.
I think if I'm saying it incorrectly, let me know, but I think it's a parcel without any impervious area, without any building, whereas other things we've looked at, we had buildings and were.
No, very good point.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, subdividing it makes that even, it's entirely, because the part that was subdivided is this whole lawn.
Well, that's why I was wondering if any of the buildings were coming down. 'Cause
Right, the
That
garage.
shed is.
Yeah.
Get some credit for the shed. So,
How about, sorry,
Where's
one
that
other
side?
question. PID was on there, right, wasn't it?
that there is not a PID noted on the plan.
Do we think we would ask for one?
Yeah, we anticipated it. We figured we would get to that point once we chew through some of the media items. But yeah, the intention is to the placard signs on posts or, well, they're on trees, so it'll be on posts at the limit of work.
Well, see, that's where I want, look, a lot of times we see a PID at the erosion control barrier, and I doubt that you want to do it there, so just some clarification on where you plan to put them would be helpful.
Right, and I was thinking we don't talk PIBs till we see if that house can be moved.
Right, correct. That's what they're kind of
Right.
saying. Most people either put it at the erosion control barrier or the end of the existing lawn.
Right.
It sounds like
Right.
it should be somewhere.
And I'll repeat, I was just last weekend at a house that has this much backyard between the edge of the proposed garage and the 50. They have nothing. They have a concrete path, that's it. And they've lived there for 20 years and they seem to be happy. But if the house can be moved, then there can be a little more lawn, potentially, or space between that and a PID.
Yeah, the existing one
Anyway,
could be remain.
All right,
Okay.
love the show.
so we'll continue to the next meeting, or do you want, so the next meeting is July 12th, and then after that is the
not
26th.
even the whole thing, but wait, they put that in.
Yes, yeah.
What do you make a motion to continue?
Okay.
I guess that explains why I can't get any information.
Motion to continue.
Yeah.
Oh, motion to continue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
When was that subdivided, John? It was, when was that? Like, when was this subdivided and recorded, like, within a year or something?
Oh, it's about 20
I was looking at GIS today too, and mine
I
was
couldn't,
separate.
I can't get any, it's shown as 2 lots, but I can't get any information.
For some reason, the GIS is not, can't interact with it.
In fact, I can't get any information on 11 either. Thank you.
Sounds about like a new
Or
assessor.
15.
The explanation of town hall was the
One more.
update to the GIS, the value,
Oh,
the
okay.
transactions, the sell, the different entities out, but it seems to me, gotta be able to
Yeah.
interact and click on it. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you can
yeah.
Get a
Well,
more,
thank-
but,
You think, right?
yeah.
Oh, it's only been 4 years.
Let's keep moving.
So thanks, Steve.
Next up, we have an RDA for O'Brien, 140 Spring Street. A request for determination of applicability. I'm going to read this to open the hearing. Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Hopkinton Senior Center, 28 Mayhew Street, to hear all persons interested in a request for determination of applicability filed by Michael O'Brien for the installation of a replacement septic system with associated site work. Location 140 Spring Street, Assessor's Map R15, Block 8, Lot 0. Hello.
Good evening, Dan McIntyre representing the homeowners, Mike and Karen O'Brien. They retained us to design a new septic system to replace their existing system, which is experiencing some minor issues, but they'd like to get it replaced before it goes into a catastrophic failure. There's the plan up there. Take you through it.
We're not dead yet.
So over on the right-hand side is Spring Street here. You've got the driveway coming down here, house situated here. The existing system is located down in the lower portion of their lot. We're proposing to relocate it up into the higher part of their lot, right behind the house in the lawn area. So we just feel this is a better location for the septic system than down in the area, based on our knowledge of the soils next door that was replaced last year. There are wetlands in the back of the property. We had these delineated by Goddard Consulting earlier this year. And as Joe pointed out, we may have jumped the gun a little bit there and delineating a little bit too early. But essentially, the wooded area in the back is a large wetland from runoff from this hill coming down here. And it channelizes, goes around the abutting property and then under Spring Street through a culvert. What we're proposing is we just filed an RDA. We weren't looking to get the wetlands formally delineated or approved. So we changed the plan a bit and noted this is an approximate wetland, and we added several wetland medallions along the edge of the tree line to delineate that for the homeowner. And all the work will be in the lawn area up here. We've got erosion controls protecting the work area as well as the construction access off the paved driveway. I think with that I can turn it over to questions.
So how far does the existing lawn area go? Does it go to where you have the medallions or the proposed?
Yeah, the tree line is right through here.
Oh.
There's a partial stone wall and remnants of stone walls in here.
Okay, I see it now.
Could you just point out where the existing leach field is right now?
The septic tank is down here. The leach field, there's no plans on it. This is an unknown age, and it's probably a system that was kind of added onto over the years. But there's some sort of a stone trench system right near the property line down here.
Within the buffer? You don't have it extended.
Well, you found the tank, but...
Yeah, it's in the 100-foot buffer zone, yeah.
There's just leaching trenches.
Really?
Yeah. If you even have it.
But we have much more room up in here to work with than trying to fit, that box down here.
Do you have to do anything to abandon that if it's or you just?
The septic tank gets pumped out, and that gets crushed and removed and backfilled with clean soil. The leaching system, they typically just abandon in place rather than trying to disturb the ground and dig all that up.
Joe, did you have any additional thoughts?
Yeah, just as was mentioned, some of the wetland flags I thought were somewhat low. It may have been based on the time of year it was done. Current vegetation and soils showed some of the flags up to about 20 feet up gradient of where they were flagged. I know in the response that they provided, it was indicated that in any event, the wetland line wouldn't extend beyond the tree line, and I do agree with that. It would not extend beyond the tree line. It's on the current wetland side of that tree line shown in the plan. I didn't see any note on potential soil stockpile location on the plan. And other than that, that was about it.
You have an idea?
May I ask Joe a question?
Yep.
So if the current flags are off by 20 feet, you're saying
Yep.
they should be shifted closer to the house roughly by 20 feet?
Correct.
Which means all the buffer lines would have to shift.
That is correct.
And just eyeballing, would that mean part of this septic tank would be within the 50-foot buffer?
Possibly, depending on which particular flag
Yeah.
needs to get moved. That was variable. I didn't, measure each flag, but just in general.
Right.
Yeah.
Might it be worth?
You mean the leach field?
No. Might it be worth getting the flags for
Do you
yourself?
want to see the plan? Plan or photo?
The plan, I think we were just talking
Yep.
about the buffer zone. So, yeah, if say this flag shifted up the stone
Right.
wall, this buffer zone would shift into the corner of that trench.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering.
Yeah.
And if that's a concern of ours.
But it's the same lawn area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my
Just wanted to
personal
point it out.
opinion, you've got one septic that's failing in our jurisdiction, getting replaced kind of in kind, with
Mhm.
another one in our jurisdiction that's gonna work and protect the wetland system better. So I'm not so concerned, especially because you're clarifying that this doesn't verify the wetland flags.
If they were to do something in the future, do an addition or whatever, they would have to tie
Come back
that
and-
line down
yeah.
and redo the buffer zones.
So I'm okay with that.
I don't know that I'm not okay. I'm just throwing it out there. And
Yep.
so as long as I'm throwing it out there, if the existing one is here, that would mean there'd have to be some work done there anyway.
Are you saying they would abandon it in place and not do anything with it?
No, I thought you had to,
We've got to trust the septic tank.
right. Oh, just the tank.
Just
Just
the
the
tank
tank
is
itself,
all they would
which
do.
should have a,
But that's just the
That's minor
hydraulic
work.
disconnection, so yeah.
Okay,
It's probably already crushed.
all right.
Okay, and do you have an idea where you would have the any stockpile materials?
Well, as
Or how you would
they
access.
explained in my response letter, they're going to be excavating out this area here
Yeah.
and then kind of building it out here, rather than, it wouldn't be a formal stockpile, to take that excess soil and build it out here, because we do have to mound this up slightly. The only real stockpile would be with the tank. They would excavate that dirt out and put it next to it, and then use it to backfill the tank. So there's really no formal stockpile, and we feel that the erosion control line that we have set up would be sufficient for the work.
Okay. All right, that seems pretty straightforward to me. Any questions or comments from the audience? Anything else, Kim? you'd like to get
No,
at?
I would
Okay.
just recommend, as we've talked about, that the commission refrains from approving the line boundary with this application.
Okay, yep, we could note that. So can I get a motion for a negative determination of applicability?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Meet you 2/3 the way.
All right, next up we have an RDA, Dempsey, 12 Carriage Hill Road, another request for determination of applicability. I will read this as well to open the hearing. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Hopkinton Senior Center, 10 Main Street, to hear all persons interested in a request for determination of applicability filed by Ronald Dempsey for the construction of an in-ground swimming pool and associated site work. Location 12 Carriage Hill Road, Assessors Map U20, Block 28, Lot 19. Hello, welcome.
So,
Oh, we'll give Kim a minute.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm a little slow.
Nope.
So, we're looking to put a swimming pool in the backyard of our house at 12 Carriage Hill Road. Also, as part of that, we found out that there was an order of conditions that had never been carried out, that trying to carry out as part of this. Yep.
That's a first.
So, for the order of conditions, I got the medallions, put them up on at the tree line. I don't know, I had marked up a set of these plans to show where I was putting them. The intention being to get them actually marked, or actually shot by the surveyor when they came out to do the as-built, because I didn't know that I needed them when they first came out to do the plans.
Okay.
And then we've got the proposed pool on here, and the proposed silt fence. It is within the 100-foot buffer zone, but outside the 50-foot buffer zone, and I believe that is acceptable.
Okay. So the area that the pool is in, that's all lawn, is that lawn?
It's mostly lawn, and then there's some overgrown bushes on the edge.
Okay. And you're taking down a tree?
Yes.
One thing we usually ask when a healthy tree is being taken down is to replant one.
Okay.
Obviously not in the same spot.
Unless
Unless you want to put a little island in the middle of your pool.
Is there any size that you'd be looking for, or same species, or anything like that?
We have a list. Kim has a list. She can help give you some direction on what an appropriate placement would be.
Yep. I'd be happy to put in a tree somewhere else back there to.
Okay. And you have a catch basin filter detail. Where's the catch basin? Is there a catch basin that you're protecting, or is that maybe just encased?
I think that's just on the drawing.
Is that town drainage easement? Or what is that?
Through the chair,
Yes.
maybe Lucas can review.
Oh, right.
The comments.
Joe, do you have some comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple. As far as the delineation, I didn't have any issues with the delineation shown on the plans. Did note that the wetland does continue to the south and then swings up to the west along the property line. There's a fairly significant stream channel that comes up to the west of the property line within about 150 feet of the proposed pool. It is shown as an intermittent stream on the current USGS mapping. So it is presumed at this point to be intermittent. Did note that the RDA filing checklist was not submitted. Also, that, as we just mentioned, the pool is shown as being located in a drainage easement. The site plan, in addition to the catch basin protection, does have a detail for dewatering area, construction entrance, but those are not indicated on the site plan as far as locations. And again, no stockpile location is shown on the site plans for the soil stockpile. Also note that there is a fairly dense growth of Oriental bittersweet on the site, and we recommend some type of invasive vegetation management plan during construction, just to be sure they're not spreading it around the site or off-site. And as far as the erosion control, I would recommend adding a silt fence to the wattle, just because it's a fairly steep slope, moderately steep slope there, just as a little extra backing in case any erosion occurs on that slope. And that was about it.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, so do you know anything about the drainage easement?
I do not.
Do you not?
But it appears that it's the entire property east of that line.
Yeah.
There's
Let's find out what that is. In any event, it would probably be a big mistake putting the pool over the drainage easement because there's always a chance the pool's gonna have to go in.
My recommendation would be to ask your surveyor about how they sourced that and kind of what.
It was also on the original, the old plans.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a biggie for sure.
Yeah, we can't authorize a pool on a public easement. If it's private, then you could do something.
I would recommend taking a look into that. Yeah.
It's kind of an odd easement unless there's something going on.
Looks like they probably at one point had a pipe underneath.
The west side.
Pipes here. And
There's a house on either side of this, east and west?
There's houses on both sides. So north and south, technically.
Is there a catch basin out the road we found it?
I don't see one on Google Maps.
There's an old kind of basin back in here that looks like it was from back when it was farmland, but
yeah, you need to research that. You might have obligations to your neighbors in northern towns for maintaining that easement. Or it could just been the draft one from the subdivision that your surveyor just carried over and didn't do the homework.
We can. I think we'll start with the RDA. Yeah.
Okay. So, does anyone have any other comments other than the easement and the plan in regards to?
I have one question. It's more for Ken. Didn't we do some permitting on another pool?
We did.
Where was that one?
It was on Carriage Hill, but I don't remember the number.
Do you know where it was?
Permitting on are you talking about Ridge? The permit we just issued for the patio, and he was doing the septic in the back and the patio. And
This was a while ago.
I don't remember.
Six Leon's Way.
Like pre-COVID, this was.
No, it was Carriage Hill Road.
Carriage Hill, but
And
pre-COVID.
somebody was doing like a whole thing in their backyard.
I apologize. That would have been before my time.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I'm kind of curious. I would love to look at the comments we had for that.
I would too.
I feel like it was when I looked it up nearby.
Can you look up sometime, the Carriage Hill address?
I feel like that was closer to the resource area, what they were trying to do.
It might have been a steeper slope.
I don't know,
being
yeah.
generated as
Yeah.
well.
I think there was a slope
Playground,
going
and there
out.
was
Are you
also
remembering
slope.
something about a steep slope?
No, I'm remembering
I
like taking the whole backyard and.
Maybe we can
I
find
do
it.
have a question, or
Yes.
a question after all, about, we're 200 feet from a wellhead protection area. Is that a concern?
It's the edge of that 200, the edge of the wellhead protection area is the very eastern end of the property, well down into the wetland, pretty far from any proposed work. Yeah.
Just check with them last.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Is the question about the other Carriage Hill lot related to? Does the commission have a history of approving this under an RDA? Is that what
And
you're-
how much was
That's part of it,
previously
yeah.
allowed in the subdivision?
I don't
Because
think we did it, I think it was done as an NOI.
I think so too, but I think it was close to the resource area. The issue is that, it was a subdivision that we approved with the houses way back when, and now everybody's adding impervious and getting closer and closer to resource area, and it's like cumulative effects.
Yep.
So I wanted to see what our precedence was.
I will say that we'll look at the COC next. That tree line was established with that COC with the original filing, which I believe was in the 90s. So just food for thought.
I will admit that your property looks better off than the other one did.
Seems like we should have done the COC first, huh?
But they don't have, we can't do the COC because they don't have the PIB established yet, is that correct?
The PIB
Yeah.
has been established in the field, as we requested.
checked, okay.
Yep.
So we're good?
I just didn't have it.
Is the PIB?
It's just not drawn, but it's physically there.
Yes, the medallions are nailed to trees.
On the tree line that's
Yeah.
marked here.
Yes.
So you're suggesting we could approve the COC tonight, but we still have to continue the RDA based on the easement question?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, okay, I think so, yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of inclined to say that an NOI is necessary, but I'll hold that. Do you have any photos of those medallions by any chance? Did you send any over to the camera or anything?
I did not, but I can take pictures tomorrow and send them over.
Through the chair, I did include a photo in,
That's fine.
along with that report. Yeah.
Yep, I can pull it
Okay,
up.
so,
Yeah.
Ta-da.
so if we have those, you've checked them out, Joe,
I did find 4 of the 5, and my guess is that the 5th one, which was the, get the directions here,
The northernmost.
the northernmost. The vegetation in through there was extremely dense, and it may have just been obscured. I didn't go digging too long looking for it.
do you think that that's adequate for us to act on the COC request? What you saw?
So, when I took a look at the historic files for this construction, there is a letter from a past conservation scientist, Ellen Shagnon is her last name, and she had gone out to evaluate the property in 2007, I believe, and what she found was that the only remaining item was the PIBs. So when Mr. Dempsey came before us with this pool application, we kind of said we have this outstanding certificate. You should really file to close that as well. And it appears that the PIBs are kind of the sticking point. So based on what has occurred in the past in terms of legwork for this and Joe going out, I feel relatively confident that we can close this matter out in terms of the original application for the house.
Okay, and this is an as-built representation. This is not the original development plan or layout. This is actually as-built.
This is the current as-built, yep.
Through the chair.
Yep.
One comment regarding the PIB markers. I think the letter that was previously provided by the commission regarding the markers being the only remaining item for a COC. Initially, it was a boulder line that was supposed to be the PIB. They allowed it to be medallions in place of the boulders. It appeared to me that the medallions, where they're currently installed along the tree line, is somewhat closer to the, well, there was a different wetland line at that point too, but somewhat further into the lot than what the original boulder line would have been. Yeah.
How much further?
Let's see. Along the southern property line, roughly pretty similar. Along the northern property line, about up to maybe 60 feet further east, where the tree line is relative to where the boulder line
Okay.
used to be.
I did not realize that. I apologize.
You're saying the PIB is 60 feet off where it should be?
Where the boulder
Correct.
line-
So maybe the
Right, the
original
boulder
PIB might
line
have been
was-
the 100-foot buffer zone line, if you're guessing it's 60 feet.
Sort of why I was asking about whether it's an as-built, because this doesn't show that. Why
But
it's
they
an
haven't surveyed,
as-built,
because they
why
haven't
would it
surveyed
show?
them yet.
But that was the original PIB, maybe, if he's saying 60 feet.
Hold on, I'm pulling up the original site plan.
Yeah, because it's following this tree line.
Tree line.
It is. That'd be a weird PIB line, but you're wrong.
What's this on the wetland boundary?
If you're allowing it to get closer there. Anyway.
Well, we could have the downs taken off the tree, and we can have them on posts where they're meant to be,
Okay, I see.
or stakes, good stakes.
Is that the original line?
That's the original.
That you're tracing?
Ah.
Yeah, so this is the original notice of intent application.
Okay, so this medallion that's in question, how far away is it from the resource area now?
Through the chair, the resource area delineation is not the same currently as what it was previously.
Right.
Right.
So my question
So
is-
currently now, roughly as shown on the plan there, so I didn't measure that. Yeah, it's about 50 feet from the wetland, just under 50 feet is what actually.
And we think originally it was like 20 feet.
It's showing,
Yeah, it's like,
Originally it was 50 feet from the mud.
57 feet, I think it says, yeah.
So the wetlands have receded.
And the tree line's established and the lawn established and all that good stuff.
does the wetlands come just
I'm
off
okay.
like that now? From here?
yeah, but what Joe's pointing out too is that the wetland line has kind of also changed over the years as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, so the real question when we do the COC is if we're comfortable with where it is based, you know, if we were gonna put a PIB out there now based on what we know, where would we have it required to be?
Right, and the closest one is, it looks like it's just under 50 feet.
Okay, which is what the original plan showed, or was trying to obtain. Okay.
Well, we're still on the RDA. Right?
I think we need some more information in order to make a decision on the RDA in regard to the drainage easement, and then a few of the things from Joe's letter.
Do we need to make a motion to continue that?
I think we do. Can I get a motion to continue the RDA?
I will make that motion.
Second.
Alright, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright, so that puts the rest back for the moment.
Is there something
Now
for me
we're
to walk
to
down
the
The
COC.
COC, yeah.
Oh, no,
we
yeah,
wanna
thanks.
explore COC, given the placement of the medallions is shown on this plan that's on the screen, because it's not on our plan in our hand.
I would prefer they be according to the NOI, the original NOI.
So the,
Yeah, I mean, you gotta pick them off the tree and put them on a post,
It,
no?
I guess the
Or,
question
unless
is, the wetland has expanded since the original NOI, according to the applicant's
Well, that would make it
updated.
Contracted or expanded?
I thought you said receded.
It seems like, Joe, did it contract? It looks like it expanded.
I would mean that the,
Yeah, I don't know that I made any measurements from the,
Yeah.
I think that bump, that finger that bumps up might have expanded.
I think part of the problem is the original plan has a different house design on it, so
Yeah.
Right.
it's hard to compare it
That and
directly.
the house may not be in the exact location as shown on the,
right?
So it looks like the original plan is proposing 57 feet for the PIB from the wetland to the edge of the alteration. So, I mean, do you want to hold them to the exact original spot, or do you just want to hold them to 50 feet from the wetland?
What's the concept? You got the pool, you got this proposed pool fence. What's proposed between the fence and the wetland? Is it all lawn or is it not?
So,
This is the tree line.
Existing tree line.
yeah, so we,
So the PIB's in the existing tree line?
yes.
That's fine.
it's on the tree.
Is it
It's
is that
fine.
an in-ground pool?
That's the plan.
Where's the fence gonna be?
The fence is going to generally, originally we were going to follow the silt fence. Now we're talking about following the tree line, if that makes a difference.
I was wondering if somehow the fence coincides with PIB, depending on where it is.
Well, if it was a
No, it's
fall in the
actually
tree line, it
closer.
kinda would be, but.
If you're keeping the tree line, you're not kind of tearing things down to put a lawn.
I don't think you'd be crazy.
And we can always condition stuff into the RDA, sort of?
You can. It's kind of a courtesy condition, but yeah.
Right, yeah. So I would,
Well, let's see
Chair
what,
recommend.
let's see what the other Carriage show and see if.
Alright, then let's,
See if this is still old.
I will say, based on my experience with this commission, I have seen new permit pools under both RDAs and notice of intents, depending on its location and how much grading is involved.
I'm more concerned about like what our comments are for that, because I know you got this.
Okay, so maybe, do we want to wait on the issuing the
outer buffer.
CUC until we, in case something changes in regards to the pool and we want to change
No, I mean, if it's,
line or just,
It's the grade.
it sounds like, I mean, this is an as-built. We've looked at it. Medallions are now up, as much as we may or may not like those. I mean, not where they are as much as, I mean, frankly, I think the medallion's kind of useless. I really do.
Right, but we allow it, so, yeah.
It's pretty easy to ignore that.
all right,
So if all that stuff is in place, it would seem like we could act on COC. Or is there anything else we want to be able to vote on the COC? Or anything else we need or want to be able to do that? I mean, it's not.
Through the chair, I'm
built
often
in,
comfortable going forward. It's just really an issue if anybody else has issues with the PIB, and I feel like we have the opportunity to adjust that if we feel so uncomfortable. This is based on old.
okay.
So I would make a motion to approve, right, approve and issue COC? Do that motion?
Certificate of compliance.
I made the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I think no one else has to move the house when they were supposed to move first. I'm pretty sure that's not gonna happen.
All right, so, you're all set for the CUC, and then did you want to continue out to our next meeting, which is July 12th? Or did you need more time?
Let me just check my calendar.
Yeah, and do some good research on the drainage easement. You don't want to build over.
I might need more than a couple weeks.
So it's July 12th or July 26th or August 9th?
I think July 12th would work, assuming I can get information on that drainage easement.
If you don't, you just send us an email that says, hey, can I continue out to the next meeting, and we can take care of it administratively. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Stone 5 Stewart Street, another RDA for septic system. I'm gonna read the public hearing notice. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Hopkinton Senior Center, 28 Mayhew Street, to hear all persons interested in a request for determination of applicability filed by Meredith Stone for the installation of a replacement septic system. Location 5 Stewart Street, Assessor's Map R15, Block 66, Lot 0. Welcome back.
Good evening. For the record, Dan McIntyre representing Meredith Stone, 5 Stewart Street. Meredith is also in the unenviable position of having some problems with her septic system and needs to replace it. So this is, give you some idea where we are here. So this is Stewart Street here. Comes down to Pond Street here. We're probably about the third house in on Stewart Street. Fairly level lot. This area used to be a gravel pit way back when, and then it was turned into a subdivision in 1990. The existing septic system is over on the right-hand side of the house. There is in the rear of the lot and off the property, there is a stream channel. It's noted as a perennial stream on the USGS quad sheet. It flows under a culvert under Pond Street, runs behind the property. There's obviously a wetland associated with that. This is a fairly steep embankment from here down to the stream channel. We did not have the wetlands formally flagged. We just located essentially the base of the topography, the base of the slope is where really the wetland vegetation starts to begin. The 100-foot wetland buffer really just comes onto the property here. It's pretty far back. The 200 riverfront obviously comes up to about the middle of the property, and we're putting our system right in that 200-foot outer riparian area. in approximately the same location as the existing system. We did slide it a little bit further back because we were nervous about this water line, not knowing exactly where it is. The water department marked it out in a couple of different locations. So we wanted to try to be a little conservative on where we put the system relative to that water service. We are proposing some straw walls here. As I said, it's a pretty level lot, all lawn, no tree removal, no disturbance in the 100-foot wetland buffer. Seems like a pretty straightforward project, but I'll open up to questions.
Thank you. Joe, did you have any comments on this one?
Just some general comments. I did look at the delineation. I had no issues with the mean annual high water line that was flagged along the perennial stream. I thought the BVW was accurate, except one location I thought a flag could have been added between wetland flag 2 and 3, but it was only about 5 feet up gradient there, so it doesn't really affect the buffer zone significantly. All work is still outside of the 100-foot buffer. The application noted that the lot was created prior to 1996 and therefore was grandfathered, the septic system work was grandfathered. I just pointed out that there should be information provided that the actual septic system was in existence at that time and not just the lot. And I think there was some additional information provided on that. And also I noted that the proposed replacement system appeared to be a little bit closer to the river than the existing system, and was wondering why that couldn't be moved back, or why it needed to be there. And then there was also a response. I don't know if you want to respond to
Sure.
that. Yeah.
Relative to the age, this, based on assessor's records and Board of Health records, this was built in 1990. The existing system, there's 2 leach trenches right kind of straddling the 200-foot riverfront area. As I mentioned, we were kind of sliding it back a little bit, so it's about 10 feet further toward the river. The new system is from the old system, but we wanted to just kind of hedge our bets on that water line and not have any surprises during construction.
Through the chair. Curiosity, what's the required separation between the water and the septic?
10 feet.
How much is that?
That is roughly, it's got to be about 20, a little over 20 feet. What we're nervous about was when we went out to do soil testing, the water department marked out kind of a range of where it's going from over here to over there. So we didn't know really where it was. So that's why we did our test bits way up here, because we didn't want to hit that. So with further research with the water department, we did find an as-built plan that showed it roughly down the middle of their markings. So we think it's here, but we don't know how accurate that as-built was.
Why would it be way out there?
Right?
Well, we were surprised about it too, yeah. Why they didn't just tap it in here and come into the house? They tapped it way down that end, ran it all the way across here, and
There's
into
a
the
chance
house.
that that's completely wrong?
Maybe the water main wasn't extended when they put the house.
Well, we found the water. We did find the water gate down here,
That's the only one?
and we found where it comes into the house over here.
Oh, and that's-
So
If you're investing in the septic, you might want to invest in the water. We'll see. Might be time.
It was probably a Friday.
Then why would they? That's a huge line.
Yes, sure is.
Let's help it's not copper. That's a lot of money.
Dig it up.
Right?
Turn it
Okay,
in.
thanks.
It's probably the what, 1 inch, 2 inch line?
it's probably a 1-inch water line. But
Alright.
Hopkins was growing pretty fast in the late 80s and 90s, and it was kind of like the Wild West, I think.
We probably just didn't have the water main extended by the time we went to the
All right, any additional questions? I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean,
Joe, do you recommend holding off on the wetlands delineation? Confirming the wetland delineation?
Yeah, I mean, through the chair,
Yeah.
you may want to hold off on the wetland delineation. I think the one flag, I think, is a little bit off, although it doesn't really impact, significantly impact the buffer zone.
Okay. You're not necessarily looking for the.
Yeah.
Okay. So can I get a motion for a negative determination of applicability with the, including the wetland line?
You moved, I second.
All in
She's got it.
favor?
Second.
She's got it, she's got it.
Aye.
Opposed?
Janine moved,
You second it.
Carrie seconded.
Oh, damn it.
No,
Whatever one you want to put down.
You
We're all
got it, you
good.
got it, you got it.
Thank
All
you very
right,
much.
thank you. Thank you.
I got my name in the wetland notes.
Thank you so much.
I wish we could put all the septics together.
So the last one I need to read, this is 1018 Grove Street, another RDA, a lawn expansion. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Hopkinton Senior Center, 28 Mayhew Street, to hear all persons interested in a request for determination of applicability filed by Maggie Chen for lawn expansion and invasive species removal. Location 18 Grove Street, Assessors Map U16, Block 274, Lot 0.
Through the chair?
Yes.
So the applicant had a conflict and requested to continue to the next meeting without discussion.
Okay,
So we open it.
so we open and they get a motion to continue.
Yep.
Continue the hearing.
Yeah.
He first, I second.
I'll first,
Oh.
I'll make the
All in
motion.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright. So now I think we can jump back down to our work session items. We left off with the bridges. So we have Warren, 65 Clinton Street, request for certificate of compliance.
So I will just pull up the plans. Is there anybody here for that site?
Man, that's a 98.
Isn't that 18 Grove Street? Oh, He's 18, 20 or something.
So, this is the site that the commission closed the certificate of compliance and issued it at the last hearing, before Lucas had a chance to do comments. So the applicant had indicated that they wanted to move forward with the commentary and had already paid the fee, so Lucas went out and did that, if you guys would like to hear about it.
Yes, I did listen to this one. I wasn't present at the last meeting, but I did listen to the discussion. So Joe, do you want to fill us in on what you found?
Yep. I took a look at the wetland replication area, and although there is a mix of some upland vegetation in with the wetland vegetation, I believe it does meet the 75% cover by wetland species. Site is well stabilized, no erosion issues were noted, no erosion control barriers were observed remaining at the site. I did not see any PIB markers or signage. I did note that along the west side of the driveway, there is maintained lawn between the driveway and the stockade fence. The order of conditions, I believe, allowed.
Is that it?
Yeah, correct. Allowed permanent disturbance up to the approved hay bale or erosion control line, which is, I think, roughly where the stone wall is. So that lawn area actually goes through a portion of the wetland beyond what was approved in the foreground of the photo. And I think that was also the driveway appeared somewhat closer to the wetland labeled as wetland O than on the approved plan by about 7 feet or so, not real significant. I think the biggest thing I noticed was that the portion of the wetland between the driveway and the stockade fence is being mowed beyond what was apparently permitted.
Okay. All right, so as I said, I did watch the last meeting, and what I took away from it was that obviously it was closed, but the applicant seemed adamant that there was money left in escrow or and promised that any issues that came up in the review would be addressed by the new homeowner using those funds. Obviously, they're not here to.
That's it. So do the chair, sorry, yeah, you can mentor. But there was replication area, and you're saying that's good. So the really
Correct.
only question is, you know, whether we want to make them restore that strip of lawn by the fence line. So if we're fine with that, then there's nothing to mitigate.
If we're fine with it being lawn instead of wetland.
Yeah, I think that's the real, right? Is that really the only big issue, Joe, that you kind of?
Right, and
PIB.
no PIB markers.
The PIB, I
yeah.
think we can definitely ask for, that's.
Yeah.
Where are the PIBs supposed to go? We'll have to tell them exactly where to put them.
They really should go along the edge of the driveway, right?
I would think, yeah, because the wetland is, comes up to the edge of the driveway. Yeah.
So it wasn't, it was shown as, or it was told that it should be along the erosion control line on the approved plan. Is that correct?
Right,
So-
limit of disturbance, permanent limit of disturbance was along the erosion control line.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is, how long has this been, 1998? I don't think it's,
Would we ever put them all on the fence?
that's what I would say, just put them all on the fence. Like, we're not gonna ask them to move the fence in and let it regrow, are we?
I mean, we could ask them, we don't have any necessarily teeth to hold them to it, but we could ask. I mean, it's 800 square feet of wetland area that was
The PIBs on the
supposed to be
fence and let
wetland
that
area.
area go natural.
Then you'd have to move the fence in.
Yeah.
Close to the
Go
driveway.
naturally and have them not move the fence.
That's what we're
Okay.
debating, I
It's just like
think.
I don't know if it's relatively flat.
Like, I wouldn't let them have that go, leave
Well,
the
you-
fence and have it like.
I think the request would be to move the fence and that to be the PIB. Can they do that? If they have the seller's money in an account and it's not, on their dime, they might do it. If we don't ask, then they definitely won't do it.
I can reach out and
Okay.
ask them.
But I mean, if they totally were like, no, at least they need to put the PIBs on the fence.
It looks like a rickety fence. Looks like it's ready to go anyway, they might need a new one.
There you go, there you
And
go.
if we put PIBs on a rickety fence, I don't know how effective that's gonna be anyway.
I think it's
Or
worth
markers on a
asking.
rickety fence.
Do we want medallions on a fence, or is the fence, do we think
There's
the
gotta be
fence is
some
good
way,
enough?
there's gotta be some way to show that the fence is the PIB. Without medallions, it's just the fence.
Well, theoretically, on the as-built plan, they could label it and that would be.
But we know
We're also not asking them to update an as-built plan.
We're not.
Yeah.
And through the chair, the wetland is only in the foreground part of that lawn area. It doesn't extend in the entire length of the driveway.
Oh,
No, no.
Yeah, I say we ask them if they can move the fence, and at minimum put the medallions on the fence, on a fence, if it's the rickety old one or a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not gonna like their new neighbors, and it's something big up there.
That's a giant
Which is
building.
And they don't have to cut it. I mean,
keep out all the buttons.
yeah, I think we ask. They could, if they want to come in and discuss it, we could do that. They could put bushes there or something instead too, but I think it's worth the ask. Okay. that was 65, all right. Next up, we have, oh, we already talked about Dempsey, 12 Carriage Hill Road. So that was pass. Now we have 38 Downey Street, request for certificate of compliance. We have you, okay, come on up.
I'm Sean Wu, and this is my wife.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much, you guys doing so well, and thank Lucas for your coming survey. You're so fast, that's why we could not prepare any beautiful cardboard. We got your email this afternoon, middle afternoon, and the engineering company GLM, Joyce, you probably know that, she could not come because of conflict. I did talk to him, discuss a little bit of comment from Lucas. I'm here. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Kim, do you want to give a little?
Sure, actually, I would, so briefly, I have most if you want to grab these. Yep. That's the proposed and then the as-built.
I think if it's history, things I
Okay.
probably won't.
Sure.
So we bought a property over 10 years ago, so actually more precisely 12 years ago. We want to have some remodeling because that was 1950, the property very old. So we came in, we submitted a request, the town approval very easily. I don't remember I ever come to the commission, to commission people approve the site plan, the same GLM, Joyce, she did the same thing. That's good, she has a comparison. So after we finished the construction very successfully, we had a town engineer inspect, give it a certificate, we moved in, everything's fine. I did not know, we apologize here, notice that we have to send a certificate of compliance from the commission here. So until recently, we start notice, that's why we submit. We hired GRM again, doing the same, so that's what their findings here. Yeah. That's why we are here.
Okay. So the commission originally permitted a garage, an addition, and some a deck to the house on Lake Maspinock. Joe also went out and has some comments as well.
Okay.
All right, so there were a couple of changes that were noted on the as-built. A set of stairs added from the deck to the ground at the rear of the house. A roof leader from the rear corner of the house into the 50-foot wetland buffer zone. And the stairs, walkway, and retaining wall were removed from the south side of the house. Those were noted on the as-built plan, and concur with all those. As far as my observations, the site is well stabilized. No erosion issues were observed. The erosion control barriers are removed. I did not see any PIB markers, but it was not apparent that it was required in the order of conditions. I didn't see an order requiring that. I did note that at least 3 large trees had been cut down in the 50-foot no disturbance zone, stumps flush with the ground. In addition, the yard is maintained mowed grass right to the edge of the pond, including what is shown as BVW. The notice of intent application indicated that the BVW previously had red maples and high bush blueberry. There's also a small dock currently there that's not shown on any of the plans that were reviewed, and a black corrugated drain pipe of some kind, which I'm not sure where that is coming from. With regards to the dock, it is on a great pond. Don't know what the permitting status of that was, whether or not a Chapter 91 license was ever obtained for that. And also the site plan indicates that the property line stops short of the actual wall along the lake, so there may be a question as far as the limit of the actual property and what's being used as lawn should be clarified. That was it.
So I'll be happy to answer those.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
The first three from our engineer, I think very obvious, the back stair, because safety, fire alarm, anything, otherwise you don't have any, exit, so we added that. The drain of the roof water, so that's very natural. The third one, actually, we remove a lot of things we plan to do. We're not doing that, we did not do, so that should be a good thing, right? So these 5 things noticed by Lucas, I'll be happy to respond as well. I think that the first 2 probably was a good progress, so the site was completed very well. The sign, you are absolutely right, that was not a request 12 years ago, so that was not there. You notice that these trees being cut. I don't know whether you guys find it, that all 3 trees are dead. I don't know what happened to our region, and also they are pretty tall. Actually, one time, a piece of that dropped on my roof, punched a bigger hole. So we actually had to hire people to change the whole roof. So that's why we were forced to cut them. And also some happened in the last few years, COVID, other things, sorry, we probably did not know the process to come here. Otherwise, they are all dead tree. So actually it was not easy to help us to find people to take them out, but we did that. In terms of the lawn, to the area or change, there's no change. The lawn was always there for 2 generations, previous owner. The other brushes, everything was not on the edge of the lake, but rather on the side. So I double checked with Joyce today. That was her intention. That's her writing. If you can see the picture, some of the edges still there. Also, we planted new trees on the edge, many other plants. So that was always there. The next question about a small dock. The dock there was the previous 2 owners, was always there. The drainage we saw was there, so I don't know what it is. We never touched it. You can see pretty old dock there too. So we did not anything. Very small dock, there was always there. Yeah. So that's that. And in terms of the town line versus state line, yes, I think Joyce was right. So our property should not go immediate to the edge of water. So there's a narrow strip. So that's true. But on the other hand, I cannot grow, more lawn not going to that. So that just maybe cover that a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, I think we struggle with that a lot on the lake as far as where the property line is very common that just don't know. There's a gray area.
You can see we are very careful. We do not do anything to the lake or wall, anything beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think, well, as you know now on the trees, if you ever have a tree in the future that's dying,
I see.
You can call the commission's office, Kim. She can
I
come
see.
out and look at it, and you don't even have to come in.
I see.
For the commission, if it's dead, dying,
Sure.
a danger, she can just
Okay.
issue
I do
you
not know.
permission
Thank you so much.
to take those down.
Yes.
If it's a
Yeah,
healthy
you
tree.
may have to come in, but that's the first.
You may,
that's the
correct.
first
Yes,
one.
it's
It
a good
depends on
point.
what it is, but
I see.
that's
You
the
can
first
always
step.
call
Okay.
the office and they can come out and take a look. If it's a healthy tree, you can come in and we can talk about it, and sometimes, depending on the circumstances.
No, I love tree. If it's healthy, I don't want to take them down. Yeah. Look nice to the property.
Gives you shade.
Yeah.
Yes.
Through the chair?
Yes.
So we at the office understand that you guys recently sold the property. It's
Yes,
with a new
but we
homeowner.
submit the application with the hope that we can get everything done before we sold. So the transactions end of May or June. So
Okay.
we submit the application before we transact.
So we have also been in touch with the new homeowner. She was unable to attend tonight
I see.
due to conflicts, but I think she has every intent on catching up with the meeting on HCAM afterwards.
Okay.
And she also has an interest in replacing the dock. So I let her know let's see how this goes tonight, and then we can figure out how to move forward from there.
Okay.
I believe that that would be a new application.
She's going to propose replacing the dock?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's right, that's completely
A
different.
new difference.
It's
Okay.
a new thing, completely different.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll look into that. I guess that leaves the I understand the PIB was not part of the original requirement of the order of conditions. But it sounds like there's a little discrepancy as to what the understanding is as far as the area between the pond and.
Yeah, that's not really, that's like us.
But this particular one has a seawall, essentially, right? All along the waterfront?
Yeah, water, on this picture. Yeah,
As
it's
opposed
all,
to other ones where it's been like
It's just all the way
natural.
down to the.
Yeah,
Oh,
right?
Right, yeah.
yeah.
So where is
That's
that
gotta be
wall
property
in
line.
relation to the BVW? I guess. Do you know on that?
So
Is
it
it on
looks
there?
like
That looks like the wall.
that's gotta be the wall.
Yeah.
And then GLM has the BVW here.
So how is their BVW?
BBW is on.
What is that?
From the lawn.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
BBW, okay. So you're saying there's lawn all the way,
So there
including
was-
the BBW?
It was converted to lots of point, yeah.
But this is dated May 2022?
Yeah.
They just
But
pulled
she
it from
has-
the,
Take up BBW.
they just pulled it right from the previous plan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Through the chair?
Yes.
So I believe, I'm double checking right now, but I believe the order of conditions for the site did specify that the BVW should be maintained as BVW in the special conditions.
It's not the first time we've accepted a BBW that's been planted or whatever.
But we
Well,
have
maybe I
also
accept
required
it.
that section be revegetated or something
We
like
have,
that.
right, we have.
Most recently.
I don't mean accepted, I mean,
But the difference
recognize.
there was,
I know it flows
it was
right in, there's
natural
no
and there
wall.
was, you know, a transition, guys.
For what it's worth, I'm okay with that, with what's there. Or
I
maybe
mean,
with some
is there
planting,
any,
I'll go
yeah,
for
are there
some
any
planting.
plantings that would
Yeah, I'll go
be
for some
involved?
planting, sure, some
Well,
shrubs,
That would
Yeah, I mean,
offer value?
yeah. Can you
Some
put
of
the
the
photo
things-
back up of the lake?
Yep.
Right.
I mean, I know it's not, it's a hard shoreline,
Yeah, but still, there
but
could be
if you
some
still get
certain-
water running off the lawn and through that, I mean, I think we're trying to promote putting some sort of vegetated filter buffer.
That's what we had last time, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It
if we have the
started at
opportunity
5 to
and
10
it was in
feet
the
and
order of
shrunk to
conditions.
3.
On the other side.
I think,
So to replace the lawn that was put in BBW, we would ask for some planting beds, shrubs, flowers. I'll speak for Ed, pollinators, and a turtle tank. So then, from your perspective, you know, you can work it out with the buyer, I guess. was
That's okay.
Who would do
I
that?
think we both have a
Make it
value
part of the
there,
cost.
easy. If the solution is to plant some, you know, bushes and flowers, I think both parties can accept that. I will be happy with talking to them. yeah.
okay.
Right, what do you think?
Didn't we have, for the last home across the lake, have a list of these are the kind of plantings that we encourage?
Oh,
So
sure.
we
That
better
would be
do
good.
that.
That would be even better.
Right.
We don't want to
We don't
plant
have
the
to
wrong
come
one.
back again.
No.
What kind of density would the commission like? I mean, is this a landscape situation, or are we looking for like 8 to 10 feet on center shrubs, like a la wetland replication type density?
I think,
I don't think that's good enough.
yeah, I don't know that we're gonna get, you know, wetlands back, but
I think it's just some
I think
planting.
you know, dense enough to provide some of that filter,
Yeah.
slow the stormwater down type of, not just like, some bushes with lots of mulch in between them.
Yeah.
We want it to be something a little more dense than that.
We did use the Army Corps wetland density recommendations for the house that had the filter strip across the lake.
Okay. I think I'd follow the same,
Okay.
the same standard.
Okay. And what kind of a width? I think we ended up with a 10-foot strip on the
Yeah.
other side.
I mean, I don't know if we can ask, request to match what was the BBW closer.
No.
No, too much?
Are you saying 10 foot from water to the,
From the wall.
From the wall to the lawn. And then obviously up, a path for the dock.
right?
So would we expect or hope that the buyer, who seems to be wanting to come in for a new boat dock, would incorporate that as part of their plan? Or
I think it's
or do it now before a COC? I mean, we don't know for certain you're coming in with a boat dock.
That's it.
I think it's part of the COC.
Yeah, I feel like,
It might not get done.
yep.
But the new owner has to be aware that they have to do any improvements to the dock, the retaining wall, the yard, any
Can we,
trees that have to come through.
we can't condition the COC, so.
But whether they do it, the new owners, or how they do it,
They gotta work that out.
Well, in
Right,
the
'cause
transaction,
the-
they could work it out and say the new owner says, sure, we'll do that.
Is it possible, just an idea, you guys give me a recommendation or, demand, I can put it that to them? If you give me some kind of a, time frame, not finishing tomorrow, but let's say finish within several months, but allow me to transfer that responsibility to them, I'll be happy to cover the cost. I can talk to them, share your, decision, this resolution. I talk to them. If they're happy, they can combine that. They can decide what time to do. They are still obligated to, fulfill the requirement, and they put it out together with the boat or whatever. Maybe that's a good way.
Well, how do we do that with the certificate of completion?
They can't, we
We can't issue it, but I mean, we can give a formal response or a letter,
That we-
right, of what
that
we're
we
looking
will
for.
or we won't?
Or I guess the minutes might stand for themselves as far as what we discuss tonight.
And then
That
it's up
gives
to
them
the,
something to use.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also make a peace of mind to them, because they don't know.
Right.
If this, only this one, I don't think they will worry that much. But if they say the whole certificate, you did not get it, they will worry more, right? If you give me just to clear everything, we accept your investigation, the only request is to, plant some bushes, stuff. I will tell them, okay?
Right.
Now, do we want to know what that pipe is? It sounds like it's been there forever, but do we?
The pipe.
I suspect it's just the weeping drainage pipe
Yeah,
behind the
it's
wall,
like-
and it just
yeah.
got exposed because that's where they walk across.
Exactly,
it.
yeah. We don't know what it is, yeah.
But if if you guys didn't see any nasty stuff coming out of it, then I'm not concerned. Unless it discharge or anything.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I guess I just also want to caution the commission against putting us in the position of facilitating between the seller and the buyer, just because we have a part-time temporary agent right now.
Right.
I'm about to probably hit the road, so
Yep.
we just want to make sure, I think holding the COC will encourage that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we hold the COC, and so what we're looking for is a vegetated filter strip along the wall to compensate for that BBW area that was shown in the original plan. And I guess we need to, the width of it is, I mean, it looks like it was about 20 feet. is what the BVW was.
What's the narrowest?
If I just take and just fingers crossed.
That's like 10 feet, the narrowest, right?
That's what I would say, you know, a minimum of 10 feet, but that they can adjust
Sure, they
the
can make it
rest
bigger.
to match their landscaping or something along those lines.
Right.
It's more or less like 10.
Yeah, because it seems like you could tie it into the property lines, but.
So a minimum of 10-foot width buffer strip at the standard spacing of the Army Corps.
But now the issue, like, so we can't issue a COC until we see and how established do we want the plantings to be before we issue something, or willing to issue something.
I mean, I think
It's just a plan's not gonna be good enough, we have to see something in the ground, and it's just a matter
Right, it has
of
to
initial
show that.
planting, or if it should be established for a season or something like that.
it's usually, but I mean, fall is a good plant, end of summer, early fall, but then you would need, how long do you think you would need, Joe, to determine if it was established? Maybe the following spring?
At least. I think generally you want at least one growing season. But that pushes it down the road quite a ways.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be our request.
Spring.
So that's not only a challenge for you guys.
Yeah, I know.
We didn't know, otherwise 10 years ago we shouldn't be here.
Well, we should have prompted something I would love to do. Yeah, if you can, we can show you maybe, we'll talk because that's their property now, right? So if I promise something, I have to get their permission.
Yeah.
So we certainly want to get your letter and then we talk with them. We'll prompt as soon as possible. Summer probably not a good time, but that we can do if we show you some the evidence, picture, everything by fall. You know, at least we did the job. You know, maybe that can at least give you a base to us. Previous owner have a COC if that's okay.
And my worry is we don't have much control
Exactly.
to the property.
Right, how they
yeah.
maintain the plants.
For example, we need to water them, but we can't go there to water them, so that's the challenge for us.
Doesn't technically the order go with the new owner, and then it becomes their responsibility? So it's really not yours.
Oh, okay.
It does.
I think
They took on, if they bought it without it being closed, they took on the responsibility.
the risks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to say walk away.
Reality is, if they didn't come in and ask, we would never even know them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We're very honest.
We wouldn't know there was a
know.
COC outstanding, we wouldn't know anything.
The new owner should have asked for some.
Well, it would come up when they came in
It
to do
depends
their
on if
job.
they have.
Yeah, if they did,
Yeah.
right. Otherwise it could be
So
20
they could have
years.
just put in a new dome.
Well, that's right, or they could just take it upon themselves to blow it out.
So,
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for coming.
One thing that's still upsetting is these tree companies that aren't advising owners, especially,
they
I mean,
don't.
this is so obvious.
Yeah, I know. Some of them do, some of them don't. And they had to bring cranes to do it.
Yeah, it was
Just to get them
Emergency,
to come.
emergency.
Yeah.
some crane, some.
They had to.
What?
American.
This is Ashland, that's called, it's a very strange name.
In Ashland?
We have to call several.
Oh, yeah.
They have the best business, I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Tree business.
Thank
Thank you, permission.
Thank you. Yeah, you gotta go with crane over.
Stumpy's trees?
That's right, that's
Is it Stumpy's?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Stumpy's.
Stumpy's trees are?
Stumpy's.
All right, next up we have Parsons, 19 John Matthew Road, certificate of compliance.
I just watched the favor.
Hi.
Welcome to the
Thank you for hanging in here.
Yeah, I have a pizza and cards
Good.
and call.
Oh, it's already full. Bring it in.
Yeah.
This
You
is
can
19.
finish that up.
Is it 16 or 19?
This is 19.
This that
think
typo?
Kim's probably gonna bring up a plan in a minute.
Oh, no, that's Kim. Oh, this is the one,
This is the one at the end,
Correct.
we talked about last time.
the trail that goes out. This trail or something that goes out.
Yeah, it was a trail that was not a true public trail, but lots of people in the neighborhood and other people throughout the neighborhood will park down at the cul-de-sac, bring their dogs down, because there's a trail, well, a couple of trails either you can go out to,
Goes out to that old guy's cabin.
no, it goes out to, towards Westboro, the state forest that way. Or you can bear right and then cut down to the lake. Right where the lake narrows there on Pond Street. So when we initially did the building permit, Jeff Barnes had come up and looked at it and goes, we can't require you to do it, but if you can keep this pathway open, that would be good because we want to promote the outdoors, etc. So when we were doing the construction, we tried to minimize any of the disruption to that path area. We initially thought we were going to have the excavators work from down below to, we were actually lowering the retaining wall, but moving it out in a couple of sections. And we thought we were going to have to do that from below, but we did a little bit of extra work and they did it from above to minimize the disruption down below. But then up above, around the garage and down by the driveway, that was all plantings and trees and stuff, and we were changing the angle that the driveway came in. We thought we were gonna just have to cut down those trees and bushes and stuff, but we were able to actually salvage them. We transplanted a big pine tree that's probably 20 feet tall.
Really?
Which
And it took?
What? It took.
Wow.
If you go to the property, the maple tree was there in existence. The next tree down was a pine tree. And we had Larder come up with his excavator, wrapped a big nylon strap on it, and he trenched around it, and then with his front end loader, cut underneath it, had one pull up and one scooted it over like 8 feet. He was amazed we were able to pull it off, and then staked it up, and it took.
Stumpy sounds great.
I can kind of run us through the outstanding issues with the COC, just.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So this is a single-family home construction permitted a few years ago. It had originally, Ed had filed for the COC. Lucas reviewed it. The commission had some comments, and it was kind of outstanding for a while. So I was able to go out again and take a look at what was still outstanding. And there's a letter in your packets from me dated from May. So basically I found 3 outstanding issues or questions, just points for discussion. The first one being there was an approved buffer zone restoration area kind of at the toe of the slope of these retaining walls associated with the house, and there was 14 plantings, so I was unable to confirm that had occurred. The second question is the approved plans showed a roof drywall for the roof runoff, and the as-built show catch basins, and then there's a catch basin there, and then there's a couple points where it drains off of the side of the slope and off of the retaining walls. So that's a change over the approved plan. And then the last item was the PIBs were kind of affixed to a smaller stake, and I was able to kind of just pull them right out of the ground. So I had requested that they become more permanent. So since that time, I believe the PIBs were addressed by Mr. Parsons. He installed metal, more larger permanent metal stakes with the PIBs affixed to them, so I'm happy with that. In terms of the catch basins and the drainage, it's now at least shown on the as-built plan, whereas it wasn't before. And the buffer zone restoration area was not completed as designed. I can tell you it is a mature forested area down there, typical kind of red maple forested area. I had told Mr. Parsons that I didn't feel that it was my position as the agent to relieve him of the need to do that, that would be something that the commission should be, question how you feel about it. I do know that Mr. Parsons spoke to Jeff, and Jeff recommended that he install rhododendron or install 8 plantings, and Mr. Parsons wanted to do rhododendron. So at this point, 8 rhododendron have been installed in that buffer zone restoration area. So that's kind of the status of where we're at with the COC request. Okay.
So the PIB signs were both a combination of on the trees, and then when the trees were set back from the zone, I initially put them on wood stakes, and Kim had asked, put something more permanent. There was 4 of them. I staked them with steel stakes with a wooden bracket, and then set pictures, painted them green so they're aesthetically pleasing along the pathway. So when people come down and walk, they won't head towards the wetlands, if you will. In terms of the restoration plantings, we were expecting it to be much more disruptive in the construction. It really wasn't. There was one small tree about that big, right where the retaining wall was. That was the only thing that was needed to be removed. Actually, that was a good fit. You could see kind of, that's the pathway going down, and if you go there now, all of those trees are crowded and leaning towards the sun, but we ended up installing 8 different rhododendrons around the right-hand side, starting from kind of where that sunlight picture is, and right by that rock, and then down to the corner there. And then, as I said, up above, which is still in the 100-foot buffer area, is where we thought we were going to have to take down all of those plants and replant. Maybe it was my misunderstanding of what the restoration plans were. I thought it encompassed both areas, so we had done a bunch of plantings up top, and Kim had pointed out that the restoration plans, right, wrong, or indifferent, was for down below. And it was like, where do you want these? Pretty vegetative. So
I'm trying to remember, so the background on the restoration was, and I know you weren't here so long ago to try and remember what we were trying to do with that area. So you're saying that was because it was anticipated to be disturbed during construction? It wasn't something, that's why we were restoring it or required the restoration?
Right. They wanted kind of, Jeff had requested, hey, or the commission, we'd like you to keep the path available. So fine, reasonable request, doesn't bother me. But we thought we were going to have heavy equipment down there. Instead, we wanted to respect the property, the nature, the wildlife, etc. And I talked to the crew that was doing the excavation and said, can you construct these walls from above? And they said, sure, we can. It'll take a little bit longer. It might cost me a little bit more, but we can do it. And said, okay, let's try to do that as long as it doesn't cause you permanent. So we kept it more or less intact. And then I had to restore the up top portion of it.
So that's why the grading, I mean, because it looks,
Yeah.
obviously the grading is significantly different. Not the limit of work necessarily, but the configuration of the walls and the grading looks quite different than,
The bottom, we were initially gonna do with kind of a two-tiered wall
Yeah.
structure, terrace, because you can't go up more than 6 feet. And, in a big portion of that, but we didn't have to, we went with a 3-to-1 pitch on it and made it a better, more appealing look, basically.
Through the chair, I did find in the meeting minutes for June 2018, it notes, Mr. Mark Wadon noted that approximately 1,200 square feet of area is proposed to be planted with native vegetation as mitigation for the amount of trees to be removed for terracing work.
okay.
And we only removed one tree like that size.
Is that referring to the, but you still had to remove all of these trees? Like all these, all these trees that are called out along that line?
Nope.
No?
Oh,
Or-
hang on.
So they're not shown on here.
No, we removed one tree.
Okay, so
These
all of
here.
these.
Maple, this birch.
Are these here? Where?
No, I'm talking about over here, so between these two walls.
Yeah.
Yeah, in there are these trees. But you're saying that you saved all these trees in here?
Those
Yeah.
trees don't exist at the site anymore.
So I think that's probably what the 12 trees was talking about.
Which would have been in here?
Right.
There wasn't
Replaced
12,
with this?
there was not 12 trees that were taken down there.
I can tell you the slope is
I mean,
like
these are
it's
here.
not it's stabilized, but it's not like mature vegetation on the slopes. You know, it's
It's grass.
Yeah.
It's high grass.
I know, sometimes I
was like,
forget where my belly is.
No, it's just funny, like all of a sudden everybody's standing up looking and I was like, what? Maybe I should.
I'm not pregnant. Yeah, so in any event,
It's hard to follow.
But if you look at the pictures, can, the one from the spring.
But this is kind of the same
Yeah, I mean,
view.
that area
that's
looks,
the outside, isn't it? That's the,
That
That's spring and then that's summer.
summer one.
same thing.
Yeah, so that looks to be right about the same spot.
But you mentioned, Kim, like you made that comment and then Jeff has since talked about the rhododendrons and those have been planted.
Yes.
Yeah. So it seems like they've met all the revegetation that the commission has asked for.
okay. Yeah, I don't know that you would get more trees in there. What about the, so the catch basins?
Random catch basins. in
Random,
all the yards.
yeah. What are the catch basins? Is that just, was that I mean, that's something new. Was that during construction?
So that
I
was-
realize there's,
So there was, there are, let me think here. There's some small catch basins, one at the end of the driveway, but there's one that is on the front lawn. Our septic system, or the septic system was on the front lawn. It needs to be pitched. And then we had slopes coming down from the cul-de-sac and from the road. So we had a catch basin here. In the front of the house, between 19 John Matthew Road and 17 John Matthew Road, we have a dry well, and all of the gutters go to that dry well. But because our septic system was between here and the dry well, and then this was uphill, we had to run this down and across the driveway, or underneath the driveway. The water off the driveway, we could have either, we have beds along the edge of the property that are raised berms, and we are either gonna cut the berm and have the water off the driveway flow down and over the banking, or what we did instead was cleaner and actually prevents erosion, is we took this pipe from the front and then tied it into the catch basin on the end of the driveway, and then piped that down the hill and then released it once it's down the bank, basically. And then there's other catch basins in the backyard that we tied into the piping and then goes out.
Yeah, but why did you put catch basin in the middle of the backyard?
Because you have 17 John Matthew Road coming down with water like that, and then you've got 19 John Matthew Road coming down, and so there's a fair amount of, or there's potential for water. So we put, I don't know if they're 4-inch ones, just small yard ones. To collect.
Like yard grates.
Yeah.
Should have been dry well and a swale, but that's a different story.
So what we did is, I gotta look at the property. There's a significant grade change from 17 John Matthew to 19 John Matthew. And in the back of the house, I don't know if it's depicted on that plan, there's also a dry well on the back portion of that lawn. That is about a 3-foot trench by probably 3 feet deep. That is crushed stone lined in fabric, and then there's a couple of drains in the back of the house that run into that. We put that there because of water coming off from 17 John Matthew, and then water off in the back of the house.
I guess my only concern, Mr. Chair, is, you know, we typically wouldn't have allowed outfalls that close to the resource area. We usually pull them further away. The outfall, the end of the pipe, we usually would have not allowed it to be that close to the resource area. Where it is now.
Well, but I mean, now it's supposed to 30.
Well, even, so the original as-built plan only had one outfall in this, somewhere up here off the driveway. And now they have 3, and they're all within the buffer, which we typically would not have allowed, we wouldn't allow. Kim, am I correct in that?
Well, what if that's the only place you can daylight it?
Usually we make them daylight it closer to the property.
The commission had a dry well on the approved plans.
Oh, there was no outfall even from the...
I haven't seen an approved outfall. Can you put me into where?
So typically we're about, you know, because otherwise now it either channelizes to the wetland or carries sediment. I mean, it will carry all that sediment off the driveway, any salt on the driveway, and now it's straight lining to the wetlands.
Not just roof, okay.
Not just roof, no.
Right.
Yeah, the backyard ones are weird because it picks up all the fertilizer and the grass clippings.
You can actually see a swale that formed in the backyard.
But that's outside of the, so that's on the 17-19 boundary, and that's actually outside the buffer area.
It was like right here.
No, that swale is further down than that. Because it's right on the...
That was one of the inlets, the catch basin inlets, coordinating with one of these guys. I don't know which one, but...
So according to this as-built plan, it looks like those pipes discharge right onto the path.
It kind of just goes off the edge of the wall and like and then into the woods. And there is a little bit of like scouring, like you said, at the edge of the pipe just comes out of the wall.
So it comes out of the wall.
It goes
across the
down,
path.
it goes down the hill,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's, so this one here goes onto a set of rocks and then goes down and spreads out. What is it? This one, I'm not even sure how much it is used because there's only a couple of yard drains that connect into it, but that goes under the path and then dissipates. And then the one from the driveway is sort of,
That one crosses the path. It doesn't. The
Did it
pipe
come in
ends
with, like,
before
your-
the path, and then it discharges over it. Yeah.
If it had come in with the original thing, we probably would have asked for like a perforated pipe or a French drain system or some kind of other BMP.
yeah, well, when we brought it down across the path, we put crushed stone there and put a perforated pipe to discharge as much of the water as we could. And that's actually what we did on the other area for the drainage pipe that were for the gutters in the back of the house.
So I believe that's one of the ends of the pipes that we found.
And the catch basin by the driveway, is that one of the small yard drains too? Or is that like a full-size catch?
It's like a 4x4.
Just a little inlet.
It's
Yeah.
small.
That's the one that will have the most.
This one
Flow.
is this outlet.
Yeah, I mean, to Carrie's point, these are things that, you know, as a project's going on, normally we would look for them to come in as a project change for discussion, so that if there's any input or thoughts on, you know, that the commission can share in regards to best management practices for stormwater, you know, those could be implemented during construction.
Understand, so I wasn't aware of that, but also understand a lot of this construction was taking place during COVID, the height of COVID.
Right, we still had meetings during COVID.
Yeah.
We didn't really change our
Still
process at all. We didn't change our process.
Yep.
So for this, so we have plantings, so the catch basin, so all that is correctly shown on the as-built now, as far as the catch basins go.
Can I ask you two, is there anything with that empty pipe dumping out, is there anything without ripping it all up and doing it the way it was originally proposed that can be done to improve it, or is that an unimprovable bad plan?
Not really, other than outlet protection, maybe if they're scouring.
Which is no evidence of now, right? Although it's
Limited evidence.
it's for
I think you
pretty
said there
property.
was a little bit, right, Kim? There was some for all or one in particular?
For this one
So-
and this one, there's like a very slight scour going on.
So there was a drywall on the plan, would it help to do that after the fact, or is it too late?
No, it's too late, but it's like now you're getting like outlet closer to the wetland, and then you put like any kind of protection, like, which is usually just riprap.
Yeah. No.
and you're building closer and closer and
Right,
closer to
right,
wetland,
yeah.
because the idea is, let's get the pipe as close to wetlands, so let's get the water away from the house as much as we can.
It's not,
The biggest
it's
concern
not a
is
lot of
that,
flow that goes to stuff, even though it's scoured a little bit, so it's not like you're gonna require we
No.
wouldn't require a big flare.
and usually the more scouring is, the property owner will fix it. The bigger concern is.
Oh, is that
any
it?
kind of pollution
That's
coming
one of
off the
them,
parking
yeah.
lot.
Coming off the top,
Yep.
or coming out to, oh, we already, so it's coming out on rocks, right, on boulders.
Well, the boulders and
So
then
loading
the path.
above it, but
Well, if it goes across the path, they'll probably,
That's all been,
that's
And then
seeded down.
this is one of the other ones.
yeah, it'll be minor. It's just, we wouldn't have allowed this if it came ahead of time. We would have asked for more stuff on the
Yeah.
property. It's just conveying the issue to our jurisdiction instead of keeping it on the property where it should have been. As is how drainage is usually done. But I think it's met all the requirements, so. Yeah, other than tearing it up and saying, we're doing a French drain. Right.
if it helps during the construction, anyone that's seen the property, at the end of that cul-de-sac, the landscapers in the neighborhood all felt compelled to dump their leaves and trash, and then trash would go down to the cul-de-sac. All of that got cleaned up at my expense. It was a dump truck and a half of stuff that was all loaded.
Did we ask that? We didn't ask that.
You didn't ask that?
No.
And I can show you a picture of it on my cell phone.
Please put it back.
Trash.
Well, that's appreciated. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Carrie. I think at this point it's meeting the intention, and we have everything shown on the plan. I just encourage, I guess, in the future, anything that any projects that you're taking on, or maintenance or things like that, drainage issues coming in to discuss it, or.
Yeah, I don't own the house now.
Okay.
I'm just doing this so I don't give someone the other couple in here, oh, I don't have a COC, and then I get cursed on it. So I don't want to leave the homeowners without a COC, because we ended up selling the place over a year ago.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying to make sure they're protected if they ever sell the place. 'Cause we ended up building it ourselves and plans changed. And
No, we appreciate that. I think to that point, it's important that we have the corrected as-built with all the stuff on there. So we'll go from there.
And Joe gave you the corrected as-built.
Yeah, okay. So, can I get a motion to, or we need a motion, right, to issue a COC?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll go to my court.
Yes. Okay, next, last but not least, we have Gately, the Trails at Legacy Farm, 0 Wilson Street.
Let me, through the chair, do you mind if I kind of bring
Nope,
you
go
guys
for
up
it.
to speed
Yep.
quickly? So, we are hitting the clock a little bit
Yeah.
right now. So I'll try to be brief. Pulling it up right now.
Jeff would have kept us on time.
I love it. I love it. No time, man.
Mr. Peter Bemis for the applicant Vin Gately is here from EDC, and also in the audience is Becca Solomon, so she's the conservation agent for the town of Ashland. Mr. Bemis and EDC have submitted a mitigation package. The last time that the commission spoke about this site, the commission was looking for mitigation and an analysis of some points that Ashland's peer reviewer had brought up in regards to the stormwater runoff, quality, quantity, and capacity. So this is, the developer's formal response. And I'll let, Mr. Bemis kind of walk us through the specifics of that. But from my perspective, I'd like to, obviously, the developer and the commission would like to find a way to move forward. What I would like to ask the commission to consider tonight is what is the appropriate avenue to move forward with this mitigation package as. The applicant has proposed that we review this and operate under an enforcement order, the existing enforcement order. I'm asking you tonight if you feel like it's possibly an amended order of conditions for the proposed changes. And I could give you like the high review.
It's 146 pages. Hopefully it got circulated and you each got to see it. But
Yeah, you all read 146 pages, right?
I got mine in the car, but I couldn't get it all.
So Mr. Bemis is proposing increased capacity at Detention Basin 2, which is already constructed, Detention Basin 1, and changing the direction of the outfall flow. It currently flows off this way, and then he's wanting to change it to this wetland system, which would enter the Hopkinton Reservoir over here versus at the water treatment plant. And then an increase of capacity to basin number 3, which isn't constructed yet, essentially. Like I said, the Town of Ashland peer reviewer has taken a look at this. We just received a stamped version of this package recently, and so I have not forwarded on to Beta, nor have we received funding for such a review from Beta yet. So, like I said, I'm kind of looking for direction from the commission on, is this something you want to pursue under enforcement, or do you feel like this is potentially an amended order of conditions? And then also I want to bring up the fact that I wasn't aware, and I was just made aware recently that Ashland had an existing cease and desist in place over the winter. And our commission was releasing units for development that was actually in violation of Ashland's cease and desist. So Ashland has not, like I said, Ashland has not yet approved the offsite mitigation that EDC has proposed in the town of Ashland off the water treatment plant. And their peer reviewer has a number of outstanding comments related to this proposal. So, if there's any questions for Ashland about their status as well, definitely use Becca.
How many foundations have we released since the enforcement order?
13?
it's about right.
Yeah.
What's the difference between doing this as part of the enforcement order versus amended NOI?
From my perspective, an amended NOI would allow Beta to review these improvements under the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook, and then, give the commission the ability to provide conditions.
As opposed to under the order, it's just mitigation, and we wouldn't have that review?
Under the enforcement, the enforcement's more of a directive. Do X, Y, Z. So an enforcement is a little bit tougher to get the right scope on.
Yeah, I go with the amendment. What does Ashland do?
What does Ashland do?
Where are you guys in this whole thing now? Do you still have an enforcement order?
We do still have an enforcement order.
The original, or the whatever.
Yep. At the Ashland meeting last night, there were 8 lots released for work to occur. I believe it's the ones that were proposed to you all in April on the sequencing plan. But those were the only lots released. The enforcement order still stands. The mitigation plan proposed to you all is supposed to come to Ashland as a notice of intent, which has not been signed by our town management yet for the work on the town property and is still under peer review, as Kimberly had stated.
Who's doing your peer review?
GCG.
I keep saying CGC, I'm sorry.
You're not the only one.
So are some of these lots in Ashland? Because I thought they were all in
Everything's in
Hopkinton.
Hopkinton.
Everything's in Hopkinton.
Everything's in
But
Hopkinton.
it
The
discharged.
Hopkinton
So when you say
project-
you release state lots, what exactly does that mean if they're all in Hopkinton?
So back in July, when it had discharged into the reservoir, a enforcement order with a cease and desist was issued on the work. And
Yeah.
so I believe July 21st or 22nd, a partial release was done to allow work on the buildings that were already under construction when the enforcement order was issued. Because of the language used when the enforcement order was issued, the cease and desist essentially encompassed the whole lot. And the commission last night recognized that as the new work, it's not determined if that's going to cause any discharge onto the Ashland side, that they felt the jurisdiction did not extend fully to that, and they released those lots from the cease and desist, but
Oh, I
had to
see.
keep the
Okay.
cease and desist to keep the mitigation requirements of their enforcement order.
Okay, that makes sense, thank you.
Yeah, we recognize that. I mean, I don't want it to appear as though we're not being cooperative. We're
Yeah, no,
certainly
right,
being
right.
cooperative in both communities, and we're trying our best to weave through this process, because we didn't design this either originally. We've been trying to pick up the pieces of the design. I did want to correct one thing. This was reviewed under the original stormwater guidelines, so it was a requirement when it was originally approved. We're not circumventing anything by doing it amended or I anticipate a new notice, honestly. I don't see the activities that we're proposing are new activities, and they're going to overlap old activities in certain zones. We've got environmental council on our end too, and we'll be working with your town council and Ashland's town council to decide how we're going to file this. And we agreed to do that within the next 30 days. So we have a mandate that we've already committed to Ashland to do it by, I think it was August 2nd was what the final document said.
Sometime in early
To file
August.
the notice of
Notice,
intent
right,
for the mitigation
right.
work.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
So, I mean, the original stormwater management plan was approved, it was reviewed.
It was peer reviewed, yes, it was approved and built. I mean, in many instances, these things were already built.
And, yeah, and then nothing on the site in terms of the roadways, the infrastructure, the buildings changed, but the conditions were different than were anticipated.
Yeah, also the stormwater standards are outdated.
They're
The ones
changing,
used for this?
they're changing every year. I mean, they're changing what our 100-year storm, what our 100-year storm
Or
is.
if you use NOAA.
And so if you, the gist of what we had done in this report was the peer review engineer for the GCG, the peer review engineer for Ashland, had did not agree with the curve number that was used in this report that was done by Bowler Engineering, which was preceded them was VHB. So this goes all the way back to VHB, originally doing design work here. And they came up with a curve number of 86 for the field. All these was agricultural fields that were part of Western Nurseries. They took issue with that. We looked at the historical photographs for that area and concluded that if you were to take and look at it as being an agricultural, and it was actively agriculturally used through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, when this project starts to initiate itself, it goes into fallow conditions. They're not farming it any longer. So they come out and look at it. They use this 86 curve number. But if you'd gone back a little bit and you looked at the contoured nature of the land, you might have been able to conclude that the curve number should have been a little bit more conservative. And so we looked at it as an 82. So we ran all the comps that are done with our new analysis, which is using a lower curve number. And if you understand the way HydroCAD works, or any of the drainage softwares work,
it's an order of magnitude when you start dropping a curve number. It's much more difficult to make the numbers work. So and we've already boxed ourselves in because this infrastructure's already been designated and built in some instances. So we're trying our best to try to fit some of these things in, and I believe we've successfully done that with what's there. There are a few other wrinkles that we've uncovered. You know, some of these calculations, I don't know who prepared them at Boulder Engineering. They were sealed and they were peer reviewed, and the conclusions were that they were sufficient. But
I will interrupt. We also had construction sequencing issues. We had clear cutting. We had a lot of different things.
Oh,
but to go back to the
I'm
original.
not disagreeing with any of that. I'm just saying the principles of the engineering is what's been asked us to analyze.
Yeah.
What we've done to date is we have compartmentalized what we've built, and we've been working through the Conservation Office on unit releases so that we could better manage how we handle the site. The site is either got stone on it, it's got stump grindings on it, or it's actually been restored now. Much of the site is green now, going up through this section of the site. Actually did an overview of that in another plan earlier. But,
So the question before us right now is enforcement or amended NOI.
well, that's one item. The other is that we've had pending now with you folks since April 4th, the release of these extra units, because we have stockpiles of fill here that we still wish to permanently sequester in the ground, and we can't until those units are released. The most recent one that was released is this 5759. That was released on April 19th. That was part of the last time that we got a release. We subsequently would like to get these released and these released, because then we can put about 12,000 cubic yards of fill into the ground permanently and seal that ground up. And I won't have the stockpiles over here any longer. We've prepped all of this ground here. This ground is ready to be hydroseeded in this area. We've gone ahead and done that, even though that fill had me create another fill pile that I have to eliminate. But without putting units in the ground, I have stockpiles. And I need to be able to put units in the ground to remove the stockpiles permanently. So Ashland Conservation Commission last night did agree to release these units.
From their order?
Yes, sir, from their enforcement order. And I would respectfully ask this commission to do the same so that we can proceed to remove that fill. The other items we're going to still work towards. And in the next 30 days, you will get a notice of intent that's going to try to improve beyond what we've already done with this study. It's going to take more time. We hope to do it through enforcement action and with the mitigation. The council and Hopkinton and council and Ashland concluded that we should file a new notice. That's what we're going to do. Most of the work that we're proposing is going to occur on our land we control. There will be some work that has to occur in Ashland. Originally, there was going to be a lot more. Kim, if you just show that other sheet, we were proposing to run, there you go. So right now, the discharge from this basin comes out of here. So we were going to put all new infrastructure in to bring the water back down. And we want to go through the existing box culvert that's located to the east. Right now, basically stormwater from this section of the watershed was diverted. This goes back to a project that the town of Ashland did, and they ran a 12-inch pipe parallel to Wilson Street down to here. That's not the way the natural flow path of the water was. The natural flow path of the water was to the east, to that box culvert, and we just wish to restore that. The town of Ashland has asked us not to come down in this path, but to come out in that other direction, and that's what we're working toward. There'll be a small amount of work that has to occur right here, but the right-of-way for Wilson Street is shown there. This little sliver of land is the town of Ashland's land. So we would need them to sign on to the notice when we do it.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Can I address some of what?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like you're killing us with information.
I apologize. The focus that I have is this.
So the first item, you're talking about filing a new notice of intent.
Correct.
We typically do not permit notices of intent on top of notices of intent on top of notices of intent. That's just not procedurally. That's why I'm suggesting to the commission an amended notice.
It's just, we're going to fall into two jurisdictions. We're not going to be in central region anymore. We're going to northeast region the moment we cross the boundary too.
Cut it at the town of Hopkinton is what I would propose. You know, a notice of intent for Ashland and an amended for Hopkinton.
I was going to say, let the attorneys decide, and then we'll follow the path. But
Yeah, I mean-
I'm gonna fund it, so that was the other thing I wanted, was to get funding to Beta, and I'd said to you today, you know, we're prepared to do that.
Mhm.
The only question was, do we do it through Concom and set up a whole new system, or go through planning, where we already have the system in place?
Mhm.
I'm fine either way.
Yeah. That's my perspective, is just, I don't want to layer notices on notices on notices. And I would also like, if we're going to be looking at some of these changes, I mean, this is still Hopkinton, I would like to look
It's
at,
Hopkinton, that's right.
I would like to look at stormwater changes comprehensively. I would like Beta to look at them comprehensively. With a caveat that you're correct, the town councils and the lawyers are very much involved, so if they come up with a different avenue, you know what I mean, that's something that we'll have to take into account as well. In terms of the units getting released, it's correct, these have been requested in April. I have reached out to you in April, and that's when we had the original, I attended a meeting in Ashland. Ashland's peer reviewer had some comments. Beta did a review at that time. I had pointed out that you had an expired EPA CGP and SWIP.
Right, we renewed that.
That was renewed like a week or two ago.
Mr. Gately's credentials somehow got compromised, and I had to renew them, and the way it works there is a couple weeks, but yes,
Yeah.
it's in place.
I don't have a copy of the SWIP that's associated with that.
Okay. Well, we platformed off of the previous one that was already of record, so.
It should be updated. I'm assuming it's going to be updated. It's a very different site at this point.
It is, but it's got the same parameters as was originally approved, and there's still a phase 4 that looks identical to what it was before, so until it changed.
All of the roof drains were originally permitted to go into the ground and infiltrate. They are now running into drainage pipes and off-site. So that's a change that needed to go through us and go through planning.
Yeah, we're going to put them back on the ground. Now that we've got site stabilized, we'll just put it back on the ground. That's the solution to that, because you're absolutely right.
That's information we need in writing.
I don't disagree.
And the planning board, you still need to appear before the planning board.
Would like to do that with this being developed, because I don't want to go piecemeal and keep going back and forth.
So there are more anticipated changes?
Well,
that will
there's
need planning board
the
approval?
planning board, we did suggest that they had a grass strip in between the pavement and the sidewalk. It didn't seem appropriate, and we do want to ask to eliminate that, because I think it'll make it easier and better for everything to mesh together.
Again, I think from the town's perspective, we need to have these conversations.
I've already talked to John Gelsich about it. He also didn't disagree with me about waiting until we got these conservation matters ironed out, because we didn't want to put something before the planning board if it was a moving target.
Okay.
So that seemed prudent to wait.
And then also in April, I called out Basin 2 infiltrating or being maintained.
That has been maintained. We stripped that basin, and it is
It's still full of
cleaned out.
cattails.
No, we've already cleaned it out this past week.
As of this past week, it was maintained. Okay. So that's why.
I'm trying to get caught up on everything too. Believe me, I'm in the same boat.
So
but it's just, again, keeping it in perspective that we have stockpiled fill out here that I can't put away until units are released.
That is a story you have told me before.
It's the same story.
Yeah.
It's
and
the reality.
It's shifting the stockpile. Yeah. So I guess my question to the commission is, at what point do we say, we really need these changes to be reviewed before we keep moving forward with more development?
Right, once you remove the stockpiles, it opens more lots to construct houses too.
That's not where I'm going with this. That's the point is that this is land that's been prepared. We've put all the fill that we could here. We just can't put any more fill there until we put the buildings in. Then I can put the rest of the fill there.
Yep.
So I'm not actually I'm trying to get stockpile fill out of where it is, because it's in a risk area. That's what I'm trying to eliminate, is to do that. At some point, the project's going to get finished. I get that. And I'm not trying to circumvent this other process that's here. I'm just trying to do them more in tandem. And we've not been able to do that now for almost 3 months. We've done everything we can possibly do. At some point, people are just going to go home and do nothing, which doesn't make any sense to me. And if that's a choice that you folks want to make, you certainly have the right to do it. I would just advise you that that would seem to me to not make the most sense. Ultimately, we're trying to protect the environment here, and we've done every single thing that we can possibly do now, right up to cleaning out that basin, because you're right, that was supposed to be done, and we did get it done. I just have nothing else I can do here, if you don't let me put the fill in place, because I've got nowhere else to put it. Or in order to finish something, I've just moved, and everything's shoved up to one edge. And we're not supposed to haul this stuff away. That's the other thing. I'm supposed to keep it here. Within 30 days, you're going to see a notice of intent from us, amended. We're not going to do not through any sort of other settlement. It will be a notice or amended. And Ashland Conservation Commission saw the wisdom of releasing those. I would ask you to consider the same. That's not going to do us any good if we don't.
Yes.
Move that.
So, question, tell me if you've already said this, I apologize. What's the risk of us releasing those under the enforcement order, knowing that there's going to be an amended or a new notice of intent coming in? The risk is that
We don't get the amended notice in 30 days.
Or,
I mean, I think, right.
or there's additional, there's a temporary detention basin in the middle of that area.
Yeah.
The risk is, I don't know if the stormwater analysis will find that the improvements to the BMPs are adequate, and if they don't, is there any possibility that room on the site will need to be dedicated to stormwater infrastructure that's not currently?
But that's not, what is that area, where the stockpiles and the temporary, what is that going to be?
That's always going to be open land.
It's not,
it's
not buildings that are going to be proposed.
There are houses proposed there, aren't there?
They're here. Here there are.
Are they on
No, we're only showing what's actually being proposed at the moment.
Oh, thank you.
But there are homes that are going to go there, but
well, those surely aren't going in.
I'm not asking you for those either. I'm only asking you for these 8 in this window of time, because this is basically a 28-day plan.
So it's up to you guys. It took me 3 months to get a basin maintained and 3 months to get a CGP back in compliance.
I'd also say during this period of time, our last infraction, if you will, was in November, and it was November 21, so we're going back a bit, but it was when we uncovered a pipe. So part of the problems that we were having was there was an underground leaching system here, where stockpile fill was placed here. Every time it rained, it leached into the ground and went into a pipe that went off of our property down here. That was put in by Western Nurseries. We had no idea that was there until we came down here and we dug, because I'm like, I can't understand why the silt's coming here. I have perimeter control in place. It's going under the ground. We dug up the pipe. We found it. I actually called Kim, because I know at the time Kim told me, you can't go over there and do that. Well, we did, because this was the biggest problem we had, was that we had silt going off the property in a spot that we had no control over it. It was a pipe underground. We eliminated the pipe. We've never had a problem there since. We haven't had problems here at all. The water quality is measured every time it rains. There is elevated. I will say that this stream channel, when it runs really high, when you get very intense rainfall, it will go from 10 NTU to 20 to 25 very quickly, all on its own. Natural conditions. Has nothing to do with any of the sites here. We measured water here. The last storm, I was less than there. We were 10 here. I did have elevated levels at Bandon. The contractor had failed to put some silt fence up. He's actually preparing yards there, and had failed to put some silt fence up in one section. We repaired that immediately, and that was corrected. But even with that, we have other systems in place. All the water that came from there came into a wetland system that's right here. We planted that. We made that. That wasn't never a part of the plan. It was approved by the board. We just took water, was just a direct discharge into this wetland. And I was just like, oh, it's like, never going to do that. So we made a little offline wetland system here behind these units. And we plan on doing more of that. We're going to put another one in here. We're trying to put another one up in here. And we're just trying to add features where we can so we can get better water quality. So I'd say to you, it's not from lack of trying. And it's been a very difficult site. Beta, even in their analysis, they acknowledge that this is a hydrologic class C soil by mapping. It acts like a D though. It's really a D. It's very highly silt laden. Once it goes into suspension, it stays in suspension. I've had vials that I've just kept on my desk for a month. It's still in suspension. It never precipitates out. So it's you got to be very careful with it. And I think we had mistakes. We had problems. We fixed, I would say, 90% of them, if not 100. So I look forward to your support. Thank you.
What do we need to do?
Huh?
We need to vote on whether, or we need to decide on whether we,
Whether we release
list.
those and whether we, or what we're going to require going forward. I
Or
mean,
that would be to the NOI.
frankly, the fact that there's so much more of the building to be done only after there's another submittal and stormwater review and so forth, it gives me a little bit of comfort to release the few that they're asking for, relative few. I mean, if they never submit more information, we'll never be able to develop anything that's in that area of the temporary basin and the stockpile, which I'm pretty sure nobody, the developer would want to develop those unless something's changed. The other thing is it's obviously very dry right now. There is no runout. It might be a good time to do the work before it starts.
It's been
When's
very
our
dry.
rainy season? Our rainy season is
July?
2024?
Last year it was.
Last year?
Last year it was, but it's been very good, and
Any
that's
drought
been
Oh, it's incredible.
disappointing because we could have gotten a lot more done, but I understand the process. It has been frustrating.
So that's, I guess, my take. We're not releasing the enforcement. I'm not suggesting
We're not asking.
remove the enforcement order completely, but to make that, I don't call it concession, but I just did, for lack of a better
release the 8.
word. Yeah. Is it 8? Yeah.
It's 8, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any thoughts?
I'd be open to agreeing to release the 8, knowing that there's many other steps to follow that will open up if things don't get done as we need them to.
Yeah, I mean, it may take time. It may have taken time to get to this point, but
I'm kind of reluctant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason we're getting basin cleaned out was to show up at the meeting and, the pressure there.
It really isn't, but that's okay. It's a good observation on your part. It's been planned. It wasn't dry enough to do it. We wanted to be sure, so we did do it.
Theoretically, this is, you said, like a 20-day plan, 30-day plan. You can't build all 8 of those units in 30 days. So how many could you build in 30 days?
We'll probably get to here. We may not get to the next one, but we would get them done. We'd be getting done probably 3 in a week. Because they're singles, so they're not as big. These take a little bit longer because they're duplexes. So they will go quickly. It's just, the idea for me is the fill. I really just want to get the fill out of the way. It's in my, it's in
You
the-
already
always
had
truck
it,
it up.
You can't though, that's the whole point, is that you need, it needs to be here, and to bring, there's nowhere for me to bring it to. I don't like have a place to drop it.
push you need it too, right?
I need it.
You
No,
bring
that's
it
what I'm
out,
saying.
bring it back.
But there's options if you have to sequence things. It just costs a lot of money. So this whole, like, oh, we can't do it, you could. It's just difficult and expensive. I would be inclined to just release the amount of houses that we think could theoretically be done in 30 days instead of giving carte blanche approval, because that's
But
when
that's
you
what the
NOI.
28-day plan is to do all, these are the units that we would do in that timeline. We were doing 15-day, and we were doing less units when we started this. Then we did 21-day, because it was this sequence for Kim to be able to administer it. What I finally did was come up and say, okay, look, what can we do in the next 20, what can we do in 4 weeks? So that's really how this got developed. So the 8 units in 4 weeks, it's just 2 units a week. It's not that hard.
Through the chair, Peter, you already padded those sites around the curve.
That's why we got rid of
right?
as much fill as we could, yes. The pad, it's waiting for a foundation. Because I needed to get all this built. So everything is built that we can build.
So you excavated it before the approval of the commission to pad it?
I did not, no, we put fill. We put
excavated
fill where
the
we're
side of the
supposed to.
slope.
Yes, we created
Yeah.
that slope because it's part of the plan. It's
Yeah.
part of the approved plan.
Right.
But I've not built any units
It's
that I
just
wasn't
the
supposed to.
pouring that waited. It's the actual.
Yeah,
So it really was the building permit that held you off.
of course.
Yeah.
But, and I put the rest of the fill there if I could, but I can't magically
Right.
drop a foundation
But our cease
around
and
the fill.
desist does say excavation for foundations.
I haven't excavated for that foundation. I filled the ground in underneath it, and I prepped it.
You
Nothing has been
excavated
dug
the
yet.
slope. You cut the slope.
No.
And then no, I've been out there. Look, it's padded for the sites.
But this is a fill slope here.
You have to fill it afterwards to.
I filled that whole road, I made that whole road.
Okay. I disagree. Yeah,
I'm sorry,
but
So
it's ready to go. In other words.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's ready. These 4 are gonna go. I probably could do all 4 of those in a week. I mean, it's that ready.
So once the stockpiles are removed and those are built, what do you see yourself doing next without the cease and desist being lifted for any more units?
So these would all be filled in. So
Right.
this fill can be finished here. Then there's a slight excavation for these, but then it's a fill again. So we'd be able to fill in these yards as well.
Mhm.
And then that area can all be stabilized and restored and finished.
Right.
Hydroseeded where we can, or sodded where we're going to sod.
Right.
That's what the finished treatment is for all of those.
And then what's your
And that's
next? And then what do you?
Oh, ultimately, I mean, we have to get this settled, but I mean, they're gonna wanna finish the plan the way it was approved. Don't
Right,
get me
right.
wrong.
So once those 8 are built and you're done there, cease and desist isn't lifted yet, what can you do?
My notice would have been filed with you, and then you'll see what we've been able to achieve with this, and I'll be asking you to release more units, because you wouldn't have released anything more than that. I mean, I will be back here for that, but then you'll have the notice. And I had hoped to meet, I've already spoken with the peer review engineers. So typically a project, as Kim has said, will get submitted, then it goes to peer review. We're already engaged with the peer reviews up front. So I just want to run by some of the concepts that we have. Because we've actually, put the monkey on our back. But as I said to you with the curve number, if I left the curve number the way it was at 86, we're easy, we're home free, we can just get this done. We've
So
taken it upon ourselves to try to
what I'm
help
asking
people.
is, before that notice of intent that you're gonna submit, the amended,
Yes.
is approved, will you not do anything with that temporary basin? That's a temporary basin right there, right?
This is just a holding basin. It's
Right.
not, there's no discharge from it.
Right, but it's holding stormwater.
It
On
was,
the site.
we were diverting water to this during
So
construction.
I guess
It's
what
not
I'm
doing
trying
what
to say
it
is,
was doing before.
if we release the lots and we get the notice of intent, there's some reviewing there and approval that needs to happen. Will there be no construction, nothing changed other than the removal of the stockpile?
Of this area?
Until the amended notice is approved, yes. Will that stay exactly like it is and you won't do any work over there other than building the 8 buildings?
So the one thing that we are pinching this corner of, because we're trying to put the permanent stormwater system into play here. We've already cut that slope so it can go in. And we're trying to get as much stormwater in place so that when we do other things, there's a place for the water to go. Because that had been the problem with much of this, is they didn't have adequate systems in place. They would have gone ahead and started building units where we didn't have infrastructure.
You're not gonna have your answer until you get the amended NOI, yeah.
Or
But
I guess
that-
maybe another question is, what happens if we don't see them in 30 days? What more can they do?
Nothing.
If we have released those lots and we don't see them in 30 days?
I'll be here in 30 days, that much. I
Right,
can
what are they
assure
gonna,
you.
are they, is that all gonna
Just
get?
can't go
What
forward.
will the
Yes.
what will the current cease and desist stop?
Right.
Anything else afterward, right? But, so I think I heard some, well, so part of where the temporary holding, where that temporary holding is, there's stormwater, part of the stormwater system going through there.
Yes, there's a part of the stormwater system that has to go with the toe of the slope.
Is that in response to the order that we have issued? Or is that
That's
part
a
of the
construction.
Original infrastructure.
part of the original?
So he's got both
So-
construction and permanent B&Ps on that.
Are you talking about this, Peter? This
So,
infrastructure?
so
Yes.
do we want him
So
to go
this was
forward?
not on the original Bowler plans, I don't believe.
Not in that form, no. We amended that to make that.
So was this infrastructure reviewed and approved by the board at this point?
Yes, the planning board, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was part of our plan had superseded that.
And when you
I
did that
gave
in
you a copy of
2021?
that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I gave you a copy of that.
But the planning board doesn't have stormwater jurisdiction, I understood.
I mean, Data reviewed it, and we
Yeah, I'm
met
trying to
with
They
remember.
reviewed it for us, though, right?
I'd have to go back and look. Yeah, just because I understood
Yeah,
that
last time.
planning board was site plan review and that it didn't encompass the
But they
stormwater
reviewed
bylaw.
us as well.
So I'm just wondering if that was actually,
Again,
I'm not 100%
we
sure.
added a layer that didn't exist, and we added a BMP, one didn't exist. So from my perspective, we only made it better than what the
Alright,
previous.
either way, that
plan
would be in the amended
It should be.
notice of intent. It'll all encompass
We'll-
all these
we'll-
things.
we'll-
that have
we'll make
revised,
sure that
so
it
it'll be a
does.
complete
Yes.
package. Okay, so I think at this point, we just need to decide whether we want to lift for those 8, or if we want to hold it where it is until at least we get the amended notice.
Not to put the pressure on, but our facilities guy is off work in 15 minutes,
Okay.
so we
No,
gotta,
I want to make this
I know
decision
where the
in
light
the
switch is
next
on.
3 minutes.
we gotta wrap it
Okay,
up.
so,
It's
So,
just a gut
may I
decision
just
at this
ask,
point.
if we say no, you're not gonna be doing any work, but it means you will then certainly, without a doubt, have everything.
I'll probably file the notice of intent tomorrow, and it will be half-assed, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
and
just to
using
get it
plain
in.
English. I'm sorry, because you're not letting us do things the proper way.
Don't you already have all the information that you
Pretty
already
much, I would
submitted?
just take that and I would dump it and put it in and file it, but that's not what we want to do. We want to try, I want to meet with the peer review engineers, I want to walk through the system again. I want to show them what's happening with some of these numbers. I've got another like 100 pages of damn drainage calculations. It's not an easy job, and believe me, I've had times when I've just said, someone else should have this job.
Well, through the chair, the sense I'm getting is you're making us feel like we're holding things up where everything wasn't in place
No,
until
ma'am.
about 3 days ago.
I'm just saying, April 4th, we started asking this. I've not come before you because we've been in this process. Tonight, I wanted to be here at your last meeting and wasn't able to, so this was the first meeting we could actually be on an agenda for this. All I can say is that there's a great deal of effort, there's a great deal of enforcement that we realize exists to respond to this and get this done properly. I would just have to say to you that it's crippling to not have a place to put this fill right now. These pads are ready. It would just be more punishment, and I know a lot of punishment has been already meted out, and maybe not enough in some respects. But I just know from me, the guy that's actually in the field trying to get the stuff done, it just doesn't seem like the punishment is worthy at this moment. I would just ask you to please consider doing the 8 units, and I will see you in 30 days with my notice of intent, done properly.
one last thing, I think. So I don't see the risk of releasing them. I don't think that diminishes the value of the order, the enforcement order. And clearly they can't go forward with anything else without having all of that approved. So to me, I don't see the risk.
I think the
And you can't possibly make it any worse either from a stormwater standpoint, can it?
Yeah.
Can it? We can?
We've not had a problem for almost a year now. You know, the one thing I told you it wasn't even major, it was minor, but it was a turbid, because it was probably about 30 NTU at the time.
Oh, that's not good. All right, what do we do? We need a motion or?
So I don't think you need a motion, you just need to advise the applicant on how to move forward and advise me on how to move forward, potentially with the cease and desist.
But we need to.
I think we need to at least poll or.
Yeah, I don't think we have a consensus, do we?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I'd feel more comfortable doing a compromise of like 4 units, come back in 2 weeks when we have another meeting. See how it stands.
But if you want to see me in 2 weeks, I would do that. I just need something, please. I'm really, my back's against the wall on that. So if you would like, I will do that. I will see you in 2 weeks.
So that's sort of like.
I would just take those.
Meeting out.
Come back.
I mean, that kind of like.
Well, one of the concerns is like, you know, the stuff only got done last week, so there was no incentive other than having to come back and get released a little bit. So
Please don't.
it doesn't help, you know, if it's a 30-day plan, we're switching into, you know, instead of 130-day plan to 2
I have to say, by taking this out, I generated a whole lot more fill again. I have no place to put it. That's what I'm trying to say to you, is that I dug all that out. I can't just take it down the road and dump it somewhere.
I get you. I'm in
So I've got
construction
no
management. I
place-
appreciate what you're trying to say.
So
But that's also,
that's the only reason why it waited. I have no place to put it.
I think I would agree. I'd be amenable to releasing for coming back to our next meeting, giving a status update. Then we can confirm the basin that was cleaned and these other things that have, you know, progressed in the last week. Kind of get that on the record.
gives us a chance to check with Ashley at the same time.
Right, we can, yeah.
Do we have room in the next meeting?
How's our-
A loaded question. We continued a lot tonight.
But you consider the 6 on the outer loop and not the 2 that are on the inside.
Well, which one, I mean.
Well, you already released this one, sir?
Are those 6?
Yeah, that was the one that was done on April 19th, so it's just these 4 singles
I see,
here,
okay.
and then there's these 2, and it's just, I can't finish the drainage here if you don't release those, so. that's
Whichever, I mean, whichever 4 are more important to you.
These are very
I
important,
agree.
because I can get rid of probably 10,000 yards of fill. So.
This guy in Hayden Road once. I saw a sign. He wants a landfill or he wants some fill?
He does, I saw that too.
I don't know which one he
He
wants.
might come get it for you.
I don't think he needs 10,000 yards.
I like the
Okay.
compromise.
All right, you got, we'll do that then, 4 lots, and then see you again in 2 weeks.
And Mr. Bemis is being advised to file an amended order for that
Yes.
mitigation package. Okay.
And then the funding for Beta, do you have a preference on that?
Why don't you channel it through us?
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it? Because I talked to Phil, and he was wondering how we're going to do that administratively, so that's fine.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So Kim, when can I call you? When can I call you? You'll call
You
me?
can call me tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good night. Thank you.
You might really want to call me tomorrow just in case.
I haven't seen you in a while either, Kim, so it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Thank
My
you,
daughter
Becca.
had her baby, so it's all good.
Thank
Tell
you.
her to be a grandfather.
We really appreciate it. We don't have any public forum requests.
So we're
No.
not done.
Then I'm just gonna, if we're all set, I'm gonna request a motion to close.
No public forum?
Are you here for?
This is my husband.
Oh my gosh.
You're not allowed to drive anymore? Yeah, we would have heckled him the whole time.
He was worried about me driving
The
home.
longest meeting we've ever had.
I didn't know this was bring your partner to, the meeting.
Make a motion to close the meeting?
Yeah, motion, second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right.